Now, over the last couple of weeks, we found out that Tango Gameworks unfortunately have basically just been closed down, which is absolutely heartbreaking considering they make one of my favourite horror series of all time. And considering that apparently they had 2 more games in development that weren't announced yet, I am absolutely heartbroken that we might have lost on Evil Within 3. So I am going to be getting every single achievement in every single Evil Within game, and for those of you that don't know, this is a considerable challenge. For all of the achievements in the Evil Within, we are going to have to do multiple playthroughs of both campaigns fully. We are going to have to complete a plethora of DLC, as well as 2 of the hardest difficulty related challenges in gaming, Akumu and Classic mode, which I will happily get onto later. It's also worth noting as well that these videos are quite old on the channel, so they may seem a little bit dated compared to the newer stuff on the channel, but just as a warning to you. However, considering how long this is going to take, I suggest that we crack straight on with it. Welcome to the achievement grind. So for the base game achievements, I first need to complete the entire game all the way through without upgrading Sebastian at all. Then, after that, play through the entire game again and try to complete the game within 5 hours. So, the Evil Within starts with officers arriving to a mental hospital as there are reports of a massacre inside. We play as Sebastian Castellanos, and walking through the front doors, they weren't kidding. The rooms are filled with corpses. We go to check out the CCTV to find out what happened and witness a hooded figure absolutely demolish a group of policemen, before he then breaks the cardinal rule of drugs and shares his needle with us. Absolutely disgusting. Although not as disgusting as where we wake up. When we regain consciousness, we are swinging by a meat hook with a sadist in front of us, and we don't like that, so when he walks away to butcher some meat, we break free, sneak up and grab some keys, then slip into the darkness. Well, I say slip into the darkness, I trip over the most obvious wire in the history of booby traps and alert the sadist to my great escape, and thus a chase begins. Within seconds though, the sadist catches us and gives us a lovely new addition to the back of my leg, before we throw ourselves down a grate and land in the forbidden jam. We hop our way throughout the level before then finding our first collectible. Now, in this playthrough as well, I'm going to be going for all of the collectibles as well, as there are a couple of achievements for those. We need to collect 151 documents and recordings, as well as 60 keys that can be used later on to get free ammo and gel from lockers. However, for now, we continue hopping throughout the level until the sadist once again catches up to us. Now we have to use our brains and wits to distract him enough to silently sneak past him. And surprisingly, we do a cracking job. Well, that is until we get to the hallway and escape from him at the very last second through a lift. We then get off the lift and find ourselves back in the hospital, but something isn't right. When we go outside, the entire place is 2012ing us and buildings are collapsing and the ground is breaking below us. Just in the nick of time though, the policeman from the intro finds us in an ambulance and we hop on board. In the back of the ambulance is our friend Kidman, as well as a doctor from the hospital with one of his patients, Leslie. Introductions are made before the driver decides enough is enough and he transforms into a haunted. Before then, the ambulance is driven straight off a cliff. And that's chapter 1. So for those that don't know, this game is crazy, intense, and completely unhinged. So, let's continue. At the start of chapter 2, we awake to find ourselves inside a hospital ward with Tatiana, a cryptic and annoying nurse that helps us out throughout our journey. She introduces us to the chair upgrade, which for this playthrough we can't use, before she then shoos us back on our journey. Back in the ambulance, we wake up and escape before moving throughout the first level. Firstly, we meet the haunted policeman again and get to the opportunity to empty his head out of brain a little bit. This level is fairly straightforward, to be honest. We work our way through bit by bit, killing other haunted and gathering collectibles. Nothing too crazy to note here. However, on the way we do pick up our first achievement of the backlog, Silent Kill, by silently killing 5 enemies in a row with a knife. A little later on though, however, we see a horde of haunted all eyeing me up like a delicious treat. So we sprint across the bridge and mirror's edge our way into the water below. That's now chapter 2 done, and we're making wonderful progress. We walk through the building and find the doctor from the ambulance, Marcelo Jimenez. He is chasing after the patient Leslie and needs our help to get through the next section of the level. The level is swarmed with the haunted, some even have guns, so we must clear them all out and tackle the mini-boss in order to grab a tool that we need to advance. So, that's exactly what we do. We kill our way through several haunted, also picking up the agony crossbow and the shotgun as additional weapons. Both are fantastic at what they do, and not before long we're ready to fight the first boss. First though, I do accidentally kill a pig. Rest in peace, crispy bacon, you will be sorely missed. Now, the sadist from the first level does not appreciate the fact that I killed his friend, and comes to enact some revenge. Unfortunately for him though, he is a moron. He sets himself on fire and literally kills himself, which is fantastic as now we can steal his chainsaw and somehow use it to break this thick ass chain to access the next section. And the chainsaw breaking the chain is probably the most unrealistic aspect of the game, by the way. I'm calling it out. However, by doing that, we're already on chapter 4. At the start of the level, it's more of the same. We meet up with Dr. Jimenez again and explore thoroughly for ammo and collectibles. However, moments later, we find the Doctor's brother Valerio. He, of course, has become infested, so this is a difficult moment as we quietly and respectfully handle the situation. Rest in peace, friend. In the basement, however, is where we then find Leslie again, and the Doctor then tries to calm him down before something then enters the room and Seb's spidey sense goes off. Turns out these fuckers can be invisible now as well, which is fantastic. We actually embarrass this haunted before we move on. I say move on because when we leave, Ruvik then appears, the hooded person from the beginning of the game. Since Sebastian also has a death wish, he chases down after Ruvik before we get Shining elevated into a new room full of blood and bodies. Ruvik appears once again and this time uses an ungodly amount of ants to animate all of the corpses in the room. But he doesn't know who he's dealing with, so we quickly dispatch the haunted that dare tried to take me on and carry through the level. This is then where we meet Laura. I forgot Laura existed, and she is the creepiest and most awesomely designed creature in the game in my opinion. However, she is severely allergic to fire, so we use that against her rather well before then making our escape, by once again having a luckily placed lift to save our life. Well, I say that in the next section we are then immediately chased down by Ruvik, and when he can't get us, he breaks the entire support of the stairs and plummets us down straight into the next chapter. The start of this level has us work through rooms and rooms of more of the invisible haunted. This section wasn't too bad at all, just wait for them to move objects and once they do, tear them to shreds. In the next room we then find Joseph. Bloody Joseph. We find him in a bath filled with questionable liquid before we rescue him and have a buddy to aid us in our endeavours. Now, I'm going to admit it, Joseph is absolutely useless. He runs away from enemies, he doesn't fire, and he leaves all of the hordes for us to deal with. However, Joseph does have a function, to disarm these random bomb doors, so I guess he isn't totally useless. In the next section, we burst into a room to find Kidman in a saw trap. That is filling up with water. Me and Joseph then have to deal with wave upon wave of enemies until we beat enough to save Kidman. Now, there's actually an achievement tied to this section. We have to kill every enemy and save Kidman without Joseph taking a single hit of damage. And from what we established earlier, that's going to be a nightmare as he is a moron. So the horde arrives and we slowly took out every single one. We kill enough before we sprint to the dial to free Kidman from Billy's trap. And I don't know how I managed this at all, but we did it on the first try. Joseph didn't take a single hit thankfully, and somehow managed to grab not a part of the job description achievement. While I was busy celebrating though, Joseph and Kidman then fall through the floor and we chuck ourselves down in pursuit. We find them in a room killing enemies and continue before Laura then makes herself known again and snatches us all up from the floor. It's now time for our first proper boss battle. We end up in a room that is filled with bodies and furnaces, and here we have to use Laura's fire allergy against her by repeatedly setting her on fire, whilst also avoiding her attacks as they are more or less an insta-kill. She gets the better of us a couple of times I will admit and pounds my brain into a fine paste, but eventually we get the better of her and explode her to her death. Easy peasy. In the next room though, we see a flashback of Ruvik talking to Leslie in a bath, with Ruvik feeling very happy that he might have found a great subject to experiment on. The room then turns into a brain before then exploding into finishing this chapter. Now we start in chapter 6, and my god we hate chapter 6. We find Joseph again before we then are stopped by a bomb door. So we must defend Joseph again in this tiny room against waves of the haunted so that he can actually open it. We clear the first room in the basement and have to do it all over again. Now unfortunately for us, I spent my childhood playing zombies, so I knew how to train your zombie. So by running in circles we wasted enough time for Joseph to open the door and into the next section. Here we are given the sniper rifle, a personal favourite of mine, and to progress we need to shoot down 4 boxes filled with harpoon minigun users. Now this section wasn't that bad honestly. In fact, we actually picked up our next achievement by helping Joseph back up on his feet when he takes a tumble on the bridge, earning us everyone gets one. 4 headshots later we then yet have another sadist to face, and honestly with our new weapons and fast as fuck movement we take him out easily and move on. However, it appears that Joseph is infected and he has been having these unhinged moments where the infection gets the better of him. However, lying ahead, a git gets executed and Joseph now feels like a hero. However, this makes him trip a wire that blows up the bridge and gets him kidnapped. With a couple of expert bullets however though, we once again saved his stupid life, even though I don't want to, and we move on. We then get a short sequence where we fight through a couple of enemies with Joseph sniping them from additional help, and we face 2 more mini-bosses, Noon and Zen. God, I hope I'm pronouncing those right. These 2 are guardians of the church, which is where we saw Leslie run. Now, honestly, again, these guys were both easy as hell to kill, and once again, we just kept moving on. Without a clear path ahead though, we have to head down below the church and make our way through the underground, before then coming across a wonderful and fluffy boyo. He's in a cage, so we surely don't have to worry about him. Well, wrong, as when we go to leave, this fluffy boy makes his presence known and chucks us into the next boss fight just outside of the church. Now, of course, Joseph got knocked unconscious here, so it's up to us to put the puppy down. Again, a fairly easy kill to be honest. A couple of bolts and a couple of sniper bullets to the heart tends to do the trick, before Joseph then regains consciousness and we head to the church. Oh, but wait, because Joseph isn't annoying enough, he pulls a real Velma and loses his glasses. He then says, "Oh my god, I can't see without my glasses, be a dear and go and get them," and then instead of rightly telling him to get fucked, we go back into the belly of the beast, grab his stupid spectacles and reunite them with Joseph. We then enter the church and that is chapter 6 finished. Good riddance. Chapter 7 starts with Joseph having another episode of being feral, and before we can get a lid on it, Ruvik decides to show his amazing seer impression and make everything in the room, including ourselves, all floaty. We then get thrown into a new cave system and we must travel on. In here we get our first look at the Keeper, who breaks a lock and seals a door on top of him, but we need to go through there as that's where we go to get Leslie. So to do so, we need to find 3 stone tiles to complete a puzzle and open the door. Now, these aren't difficult to find, we've already got the first one and just have to go through 2 simple rooms to basically find the others. Also dealing with a few new enemies, these 2-headed haunted. They're basically normal haunted with a little bit more health, so they are easily taken out. However, we find the rest of the pieces and pursue the safe brain. Moving on, we then find the Keeper again, who traps a hallway with death and introduces us to a new mine that traps us in barbed wire. Easy enough to get out of though, so we sprint whilst avoiding the death spikes and additional mines before then finding Leslie in a cage. We free him, open up a door for him before the selfish prick just leaves us behind. Bit rude, but not as rude as the Keeper appearing to try and cleave my head off. And here is the next boss fight. In this we need to turn valves of the deadly gas off whilst also taking out the Keeper that chases us. Now the special thing about this gent is that once he's been killed he can respawn by teleporting to another safe on the floor, and there is an achievement in this section to only kill him twice. So with that up for grabs we get to work. Now we work our way through the rooms avoiding him whilst we can and killing him twice, but since we're doing too well he decides to sabotage a valve to the exit, so now we need to grab a new one. So we find the valve, freeze the Keeper in place and sprint to the valve to turn it off in time, and with only a moment to spare it works. We turn off the valve and sprint to the exit. A safe box then decides to take inspiration from Alien and tries to face hug us, but Seb's favourite film is Alien, so he throws the safe under some spikes, brings it down on the Keeper and takes him out once and for all. Well, kind of. It is then a short jog to the end of the level and we finish the chapter as well as gain the achievement. Don't have time for this. So at the beginning of chapter 8 I go for another chapter specific achievement, and it sounded a little bit tricky. We have to go through the entire chapter without firing a single shot. It's melee only here I'm afraid, and I'll be honest, it sounds much harder than it actually is. This chapter is fairly short and there are ways to deal with each section. Like here at the start we have to deal with a group of enemies, but we don't actually have to, as if we farm them all into the first room we can actually open the door very easily without ever having to fight. Whilst opening the next door though, we get rained on by very small enemies. That confused the hell out of me, but we can just ignore them, and even if we don't, we can just hit them for a quick insta-kill. We then have to place a block on this door to open it, which we do easily, and within minutes we are in a room with Jimenez again. Here he tells us that he and Ruvik were working on a method to link brains together, sharing emotion, memory and whatnot directly. It turns out that Ruvik is currently the host of this nightmare, and even though other characters have influence on it, Ruvik is in charge and he is the one with all the influence. We go to move on before another big weird puppy chases us down. We sprint away through the door that leads us back into the safe room. Ruvik then appears once more, and that's mission 8 completed. We then gain the achievement Item Management. Now straight into chapter 9, I was feeling good. We were getting the spare achievements and the collectibles wonderfully and making great time. We start this chapter outside of a manor. As we walk in we see Leslie and Jimenez go through a big ass door that once again we need to open. Now to open the door it's fairly simple but odd. We have to find 3 heads around the mansion and probe a certain part of the brain to open the door with a blood donation, or something like that. The game is very unhinged. Now again, this mansion is fairly easy as the only real threat comes from Ruvik invading, who can insta-kill you, but he is quite easy to loop until he just naturally disappears anyway. So one by one we probe the brains until we have the door open. We walk through to see a young Ruvik dissecting the head of a pig, as you do. He then transforms into a trail of ants and then we follow to the next section, where the ants then combine into a giant creature that we can simply outrun for now. In the next part, we have to sprint through a maze surrounded by creepy ass mannequin heads whilst also avoiding Ant-Man, until we end up in a field of sunflowers? Lovely. But once we enter the barn there, we get some more lore. In here we can actually see a young Ruvik and a young Laura playing games. Now it turns out that they're actually brother and sister, which is nice. But what isn't nice is that Ruvik is also in love with Laura. Ew. However, during these flashbacks we can see farmers start to burn down the barn. They didn't know, or should I say didn't care, that Ruvik and Laura were inside. So when they set the barn alight, it kills Laura and gives her the allergy to fire, as well as horrifically disfiguring Ruvik. Ruvik's dad then locks him inside a basement inside of the family manor until eventually Ruvik breaks out and kills both of the parents, also claiming their massive fortune. With the money, Ruvik then began donating to Beacon Memorial Hospital in exchange for test subjects. As we go to leave the burning barn though, Ant-Man makes his last appearance. He summons Haunted to kill us. It doesn't really work as we're simply built different, but moments later Ant-Man finds Laura's flashback corpse, picks it up and vanishes, before the roof then caves in on us and we are back at the mansion. We sprint through and complete the level. Now we start chapter 10. It starts with us once again working our way through the level, killing Haunted and avoiding a giant bladed merry-go-round, cause yep, that's a thing. We do just that and find ourselves in another room. This time we then have to work our way through the level, avoiding traps and enemies so that we can turn the power back on and open the main door. Going through again, fairly easy, we turn on the power and start to make our way back until we meet a new mini-boss type enemy known as Trauma. These things are a bit tricky to kill as they are a complete bullet sponge, but nothing that we can't handle. We make our way back to the main room and open the doors, and now we get to a boss fight. Here we meet Laura again, who very unwisely decides to have her fight in a furnace where tons of fire exists. How stupid. We get chased bit by bit until we enter the room that we can kill her in. I say can because for this boss fight you don't actually have to kill her. You can keep her at bay and turn off the fire to the exit. But for this we have to kill her for an achievement. We also have to kill her as there is a collectible in the next room ahead that you cannot access unless you do kill her. Now this may not sound like a problem, but this was a huge one. We didn't have the ammo or the matches to kill her. We tried several times and always ran out of ammo before she was dead, and this left me extremely confused as what to do. As if I ignore her, I lose 2 achievements that would make future playthroughs a nightmare, but then somebody in my chat told me a method that would work wonderfully. But it is a bit cheap, I won't lie. Around the level there are these levers that if you shoot them will spit fire out for a couple of seconds to burn Laura. However, if you shoot the bottom of the pipe with a harpoon, it will endlessly spit out fire. That will burn Laura over and over again. Well, until she dies. And even though I didn't love this idea, I had to use it or I would be severely behind my playthrough and achievements. So we shot the pipe, burnt Laura to death, and gained the achievement Bathed in Flames, as well as the sodding collectible. We hop in the lift and are greeted with Ruvik again, who threatens us a little bit more before leaving. We exit the lift back into the manor and sprint through the door once more. Here we find Jimenez again performing an experiment with Leslie. He says that Leslie has been here before and survived, so being the only patient to ever do that, he must be our key out of this hellhole. But before the experiment kicks in fully, the puppy that chased us down before appears again before then stomping Jimenez into the afterlife. And just like that, we already have yet another boss fight, this time taking on what is called as the Amalgam Alpha. Now, he may look scary, but honestly this is the easiest boss in the game. We damage him slightly until he falls over and emits a purple light. From that light, an eye then spawns. So we snipe the eye, put a couple more shots in, and then it dies. Simple. We enter a lift that spawns, and then that's chapter 10. We then exit the lift and spawn in the city. And you'll be surprised to know that we start by just working our way through the level, killing enemies and making our way through the city. Nothing really needs mentioning here other than the fact that we get the Magnum pistol, which is just simply broken and overpowered to hell. One thing worth noting as well is the new enemy type, a Ruvik clone, that can summon Laura's arms to come and grab you. But again, fairly easy to kill. We also meet Shigyo, an aquatic beast that will insta-kill you if it grabs you in the water, but by using bodies as bait, it's fairly easy to avoid. We fight through the level until we reach a gondola. This part has us being a sitting duck whilst enemies spawn and shoot you from the sides, but since one bullet knocks them to the death, this part was also fairly easy to tackle. We then meet Kidman again, who is trapped after being chased by the Haunted. We of course, being the hero that we are, go to save her. Now Kidman is what we call a good companion, as she doesn't have a health bar to worry about and she actually shoots the enemies. Now unfortunately moments later we start to get headaches. Now the headaches are the exact same that Joseph was getting and it makes us go feral, so Kidman shoots me. Somehow I wake up and Kidman has trapped me and ran off. However, Leslie is now here to save me and turn the tables. He opens a door for us, well, mostly, and we find ourselves in a warehouse filled with flammable gas. So we must go through this next section without firing our gun. Again, I'm sorry to say, fairly easily, and we finally find the keycard and exit the warehouse, where we find Joseph, who has managed to commandeer a bus. And with that, this chapter's over too. Now, chapter 12 is probably the easiest yet. It starts with me and Joseph on the bus before Kidman barges in and gets us straight into speeding. It turns out that she has a great reason to do so though, as chasing us is Heresy, a huge spider-like behemoth that wants us dead. He rips off the top of the bus and goes to kill us. But since I've got my Magnum, he's pretty easy to take out, falls off and begins to chase us once again. Before he can get us though, he drifts into a building that blocks us off, but gives us a great chance to be ambushed by Haunted with bombs and rifles. Now, since this part just chucks ammo at you, again, it's easy, and all you have to do is waste enough time until Joseph kills a Haunted in front of the bus with a bomb that clears the path for us to continue. And of course, once we get some traction, Heresy rejoins the Xbox Live party chat and decides to try to kill us again. It doesn't work thankfully, but he is moments away from killing me before a well-placed bridge turns him into the world's most disgusting paste. Heresy is done for. But on the way back to the hospital, Joseph, like the useless fuck he is shot and injured, and now we have to make our way to an ambulance to get some anti-bullet medicine so that he lives. However much I don't think we should actually do that and just move on, let him die anyway, I'm reminded, I'm the hero. That is what heroes do. We find the bullet bandages, and on the way back to the bus we are greeted with a minigun. Now, we're supposed to be scared of this, however, I want my hands on that gun. We commandeer his truck, grab the gun and simply unload it into a horde of enemies. Now this part made me very happy and it was very therapeutic. But soon the waves end and we're back on the bus. Now it's time for our next achievement. This one has us take control of the bus and make it to the end of the level without hitting a single Haunted. Honestly, this was fairly easy as there aren't that many on the bridge to begin with. So moments later we unlocked not a scratch on her before then Ruvik once again appears and throws the bus into the side of a building, ending chapter 12. Now we don't have that many left, so let's carry on. The mission starts with me and Joseph looking out the skyscraper that we crashed into, noticing that ahead there is a train that we can use as a bridge to make it back to Beacon Hospital. And like a couple of morons that we are, we decide that that train bridge is a great idea and set off to cross it. Not actually thinking, wait, no, that's a horrendous idea and that will get us killed. Now again, honestly, there isn't much to say about this level, besides the Keeper returning, a new acid trap, as well as the Death Roombas. There honestly isn't anything to note in this mission and it's just more of the same. We fight through the level, killing enemies, avoiding death. Eventually though, we do get into a freezer where Joseph runs the Keeper into, and now we have to fight the Keeper again until the door to the food lift opens and we can make our escape. We do just that, hop in and escape the Keeper again. Within moments though, we are outside of a playground and Kidman is walking up to it with Leslie. But as Leslie goes to enjoy the swings, Kidman pulls out a gun and goes to kill him. We threaten her to stop, but she says that Ruvik wants Leslie and that she has orders not to let Ruvik get Leslie under any circumstances. So when she goes to shoot, Joseph goes to take the bullet. But Leslie screams and an earthquake shatters the level. Leslie then runs away and Joseph takes another bullet for his troubles. And that is the last we'll see of him, for now. And we reach the end of the chapter. At the start of chapter 14, we are now in a train station, and like several missions that came before, we work our way through the level, kicking names and taking ass. But eventually we come across a gross web of goo. We burn it and head down into the substation. However, as we continue to kill enemies and dodge the new electricity traps, a new friend introduces themselves by joining in on the killing. Sod it, could be worse. We carry on making our way through the level until we find a lift and an electric puzzle. We quickly solve it and go back to turn the lever on for full power before Quell then makes his appearance. This creature throws us into a pit and another boss fight ensues. Quell can do several things: slither around, go invisible, jump into pipes to then release maggots that explode on hitting us. It is a fairly fun and interesting fight, but like the ones that came before it, a couple of freeze bolts and a couple of well-placed grenades take this thing out once and for all. On the way out of the building after powering the lift, we also find the last key, just sitting there waiting for us. We then find the bridge train, and after it threatens us, Ruvik appears. As we sprint to make the jump, we jump, end back in the corridor to the brain room that came before. We get more backstory on Jimenez betraying Ruvik before the brain once again explodes, and with that, we are on our final mission. In the 15th and final mission, our first task is to use the last of the keys to open up all of the lockers in the safe room, and once we do, we unlock the achievement Master of Unlocking. As we go to leave, Leslie finds us again and asks us to follow him. We do, and within seconds we find ourselves at the door of the Beacon Mental Hospital again. We enter and go through the level, backtracking to areas from the first mission. We push through and find ourselves at the base of a lighthouse though. Upon climbing it, we hop in a lift and then carry on going through the level, until Ruvik once again appears to try to end us. We instead set him on fire by smashing a lantern over his head, and as punishment he sends us to the Realm of Eyes. Here we have to face wave and wave of enemies. This part again just throws ammo at you, so it is fairly easy to complete. Eventually a rocket launcher wielding sadist appears and opens the door to the next part. We finish destroying everything in this room and sniping those in the next, before we then find ourselves in a brand new room, trapped with 2 keepers inside, and we need them both dead to move on. Now this part did take me a little bit, as they do become absolute bullet sponges, and I was truly tested to get through this next section, but thankfully we did beat them eventually, and a door appeared to the next place. We enter it and go through this bizarre spotlight maze section, which again is fairly easy to figure out, but since Ruvik is a cheating scumbag, when we do well he sends a shredder after us and we sprint through the door that eventually leads to Stem. In there we look through the floor to see that Sebastian is in a bath of milk asleep, before Leslie then disrupts the reunion by screaming that Kidman is chasing him. We hold our ground as Kidman tries to reason with me. We tell her to get stuffed, but before we can do anything the room changes and explodes. We go tumbling out of the window and Kratos our way down onto a big brain. And just like that, it's time for the final boss fight himself, Ruvik. Now, he has taken control of a horrible beast, but the fight itself is more or less just a couple of quick time events that string along. First, we get flung into a cart and machine gun our way through his hands and brain. When he gets bored of that, he then hits us onto a spike of barbed wire, where we then access a rocket launcher from a dead sadist that we then rattle him up a little bit with. He doesn't appreciate this either, and we fall back onto the brain for the final showdown. As Ruvik's beast comes in to munch on us, we fire a single bullet straight into Ruvik's head, and with that, Ruvik dies, and the monster explodes. We wake up in the milk tub, detach the wire to our brain and go to end this by taking Ruvik's host brain and giving it a well-deserved squish. We exit the room, step outside, see Leslie run into the distance, and that is the evil within. We end the game and get the achievement "It is what it is" for completing the game without spending a single blob of gel. But we're not done. We now have to complete the entire game again in under 5 hours, get the last collectible that is only accessed in New Game Plus, and spend all of the gel that we'd gathered to fully upgrade Sebastian. As even though we didn't spend any in the previous playthrough, we had saved tons that we can now spend in New Game Plus, as well as get a couple more miscellaneous achievements. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire game again, don't worry, but the one thing that I will say is by starting New Game Plus, we actually unlock the RPG as a weapon. That simply destroys enemies and bosses. So this should be easier. That and the fact that I know where to go, what to do, and we can upgrade Sebastian now to his ultimate form. The next achievement we get is by picking up the last missing person poster in the save room, unlocking the achievement every nook and cranny, which was actually a great relief as I was terrified that I'd missed a collectible along the way. Then hopping in the chair, we then fully upgrade all of Sebastian's abilities for the achievement hard body. We got the power of 3 for fully upgrading 3 weapons, as well as upgrading all weapons for unstoppable arsenal, before finally upgrading all of Sebastian's ability to hold ammo for the achievement "Why can't I hold all this ammo?" But now it's back to the speedrun. We expertly sprint through chapter by chapter, thankfully making little mistakes, and thanks to our new weapons and upgrades, making jam out of any of the enemies that dared stand in our way. We pace through them all bit by bit before we find ourselves once again at the final boss. We shoot him in the head. Now all we needed to see if it was under 5 hours. And then quickly soon after, the quick and the dead popped, as it only took us 3 hours and 41 minutes to go through the entire game. With that, we only had one more achievement to go, to kill 5 enemies with every type of agony bolt. Now the harpoon, the explosive and the freeze bolt were quite easy to do since they killed on command, whereas the shock and the light bolt are different because you have to kill the enemies whilst they're currently being shocked or blinded. But I thought the perfect time to do this would be at the beginning of the game at the very first horde. So I loaded in, got their attention, blinded them all before quickly blowing them up with the rocket launcher, and with that we have our final achievement for this run, Full House. Now for those of you that don't know, you asked for it is for completing the game on Akumu difficulty. Now Akumu difficulty is easily one of the hardest challenges that I have ever grinded for, in which any damage no matter what will insta-kill you. If a haunted hits you, dead. If you stand on a bear trap, dead. Absolutely anything, dead. And not only that, but the levels are filled with more enemies and more mini-bosses that would appear on later in the game. And because that's not hard enough, enemies are also smarter, faster, and have incredible perception. So we really have our work cut out for us today, as going for this achievement absolutely broke me, both mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of the lees. Now we're just going to get straight into it. So thankfully at the start of the game it is casual and it is fine. It's mostly set up as we step inside of the hospital and go about our business in the investigation. We go to the CCTV, Ruvik stabs us, and we wake up in front of the sadist. Now for this part I wasn't too worried, as the sadist insta-kills you anyway, so dealing with this wasn't that bad at all. And having just gone through this game twice through, I was already feeling confident. We hopped our way through the stage fairly easily until once again we meet the sadist. Now again, here, I was feeling it. I knew how to deal with this section and it was fairly easy. Well, it was on any other difficulty, as another thing that Akumu mode does is throw a bunch of extra obstacles in the way. Now I have to get the sadist to clear the path to sneak past. Normally this section is just a simple walkthrough, but now I have to actually use my brain to get past him, and I hate using my brain. We died a lot, literally stumbling at the first hurdle, but getting fed up with being carved in half, we took it slower and steadier and thankfully made it into the lift. Even though it didn't take us that long, I got a horrible sense of foreboding here. However, the intro plays and we got a small taste of the nightmare that was about to come. And with that we completed chapter 1, only 14 more to go. Now we just carry on through the level, we make our way through Tatiana's safe room, out of the ambulance and take care of the police officer, thankfully with ease. Now not to get too cocky too soon, but I was dealing with the Haunted brilliantly. Having already gone through the game twice, it gave me a wonderful understanding of timing and the sneaky ways that I could use the environment to kill. For example, the Haunted here instantly spotted me, and with no ammo I blew up one with a trip mine and burned the second by lighting a spare body on fire. However, the game then decided to very quickly humble me. The next section I had no ammo and had to deal with a small horde of the Haunted. Now this wouldn't be too bad, but I could not deal with one Haunted without having the rest sprint to me to investigate. And since their perception was insane, I couldn't sneak up on them either, as whenever I got close, they'd turn around last minute and slap me into the afterlife. Of course, that's when I didn't blow myself up. This section was my first true taste of the Akumu experience, as since I got so used to the gameplay from before, it took me a while to adapt to the way that Akumu expects you to play, and this threw me and threw me hard. I honestly died here 20 times easily, but with a slower pace, some well-placed bottle throws, bombs, torches, we got through, after many deaths. It was then a short hop, skip and jump to the end of the next chapter. Now starting chapter 3, I was slightly nervous about this part. Even though it's the section where you get the shotgun and the agony bolt, I knew it was going to be tough from the sheer amount of enemies and of course the sadist mini-boss that we have to face. But like the brave little eggs we are, we slowly started to work our way through killing the Haunted that dare get in our way, and honestly, this part shocked me, as we seem to be getting through fairly easily. I mean, by the time that we picked up the shotgun, the bow and got some keys and whatnot, we had only died twice. But now it's time to face the sadist himself, so I knew that this number was about to soar. Except it wasn't, because we killed him first time. I think at this point I was a little more accustomed to how to play Akumu and started to get my pacing and my timing down much better, but even with the additional enemies and Ruvik's clone, it only took us 2 deaths, so I ended chapter 3 feeling fantastic. Now before we carry on for this run, when it comes to upgrading Sebastian with your gel, I focused on 2 specific parts first. Sprint, because Sebastian can run for about as long as an asthmatic ant with some heavy shopping, so I knew for some later parts that I would really need to rely on my ability to sprint. But we also upgraded the critical chance hit percentage for the pistol, as if you fully upgrade this, the pistol then becomes a broken weapon, as I found out during my speedrun. With this fully upgraded, a headshot has a 50% chance to insta-kill, and this turned the normal Haunted from being scary, intimidating creatures to nothing more than a minor inconvenience. So when we upgraded, this is what we spent our money on. Chapter 4 went by fairly quick to start with. We killed Jimenez's brother, collected keys before finding Leslie in the basement. We took out the invisible enemy fairly easily as well, thankfully, and carried on. As you know, Ruvik appears, we chase him and end up in a room, which did make me a little nervous, as you have to fight a lot of enemies in a very small room, whilst also trying to avoid the jam that slows you down and makes you an easy target. Also, for Akumu, of course, there was also an extra Ruvik clone in here as well. Now, of course, in this section, we died quite a bit, from unlucky hits to Laura's hands grabbing me. But then I found this room here. Now this room is simply fantastic, as if you climb this ladder, it forces the Haunted into a single file formation, which makes them easy hitting, as when they climb the ladder, one by one, we make our headshots and they're almost guaranteed. Once I found this room, I took out the Ruvik clone as soon as I could, got up into this spot, chucked a grenade that mulched the poor bastards beneath it, and for those that survived, we shot them as they climbed. It really made this section easy, and I think I cleared this section with maybe 5 or 6 deaths, well below what I was expecting. So with my morale still high, we moved through to the Laura section, which was again easy, as all it is a short run through a scary looking sections until we reach the staircase that Ruvik sends us screaming down for the end of chapter 4. But before I get too cocky, let's continue. Now we have to deal with rooms of the invisible haunted on our way to rescue Joseph. I did get hit and killed a couple of times, but for the most part we expertly removed the brain matter from the Hollow's haunted heads. We rescued Joseph from his milk bath and pressed on. Now again, the rest of the level went by fairly stress-free, but I remembered what room was coming up ahead. And this room filled me with fear. The saw trap. Now, I died here a couple of times of course, but mostly it was from my own stupid decisions that killed me, like shooting a sprinted haunted with a bomb, turning myself into a neat collection of gristle. And this is a great time to show an example of the power that the pistol headshots can hold, as this made the room so much easier. Like here, Joseph is getting picked on by a gang. So with 3 bullets, I had 3 heads explode. In this moment, I knew I made the right call with my upgrades. But I got straight back to shooting folks until bizarrely, Joseph said, I think that's it. It's time to go to the control panel to free Kidman. So I put on my best running shoes and faith sprinted past the haunted until I reached the panel. I already knew the code, so I interrupted useless fecking Joseph, and him and Kidman both hold themselves. This next section, again, was fairly easy. Run through the rooms, kill a couple of creatures until you room that Joseph and Kidman are inside, hollow out some more skulls, get past the door, and then get kidnapped by Laura again. Fairly simple. But when we woke up, it was now time to face the first Laura boss battle. Now for this, I wasn't too worried. Laura is an insta-kill anyway, so the difficulty didn't really affect the fight that much. And again for this fight, I didn't die anywhere near as much as I expected to, as it was a very nice rinse and repeat. Burn her with a furnace and then burn her with a body. She did get me a couple of times, I can't lie, but nothing that I was too worried about. She keeled over eventually, and with that the chapter was over, and already like that we are a third of the way through. However, earlier when I said things were going well, chapter 6 is here, and chapter 6 is where this truly turned into a nightmare. We started by meeting up with Joseph again and protecting him as he disarms the bomb doors here and on the level below. So we can't take a single hit, and we also need to protect him. Oh god, this is going to be fun. And yeah, this was much more painful than I was expecting. Random hits, bad barrel shooting, anything that stopped my momentum would result in my death and having to do the entire section over again. So my tactics were the same here that they were for the speedrun. Kill the first couple of haunted, and once 3 enter the room, run them around in circles. And even though this didn't work every time and was stressful as hell, this was the easiest way to deal with the rooms. But something then happened, something that I never would have expected. On the second door, whilst I was training the haunted, Joseph told me the words that I was dying to hear, that the door was open. I immediately panicked and sprinted to the door with a haunted hot behind me. For a moment, I knew I'd made a mistake and that my death was close, but Joseph took the hit from me and sacrificed himself for the greater good. I was deliriously happy with this. Out my way, out my way, out my way, out my way, please! No, he took... he saved my life! And for the first time I've ever seen, Joseph did something good, and now I love him. But now it's time to take out the 4 boxes with a sniper and then move on to the next sadist fight. I would happily do the previous rooms 10 times in a row over again than this bit. This part was an absolute nightmare and pushed me to my wit's end. I swear to God this bit was pure torture. So gaining the sniper rifle and getting to the next checkpoint wasn't an issue at all, but once the boxes started firing, my depression suddenly grew fierce, as this part took me hours. I had very little ammo, Joseph went back to being a useless bellend, and every part of the map was thin, littered with harpoons, and if not harpoons, swarms of haunted would run at me from both sides. Death by death, my patience ran thinner, and with each death I tried to learn more and more for a clear path or a way to go about doing this. Eventually I realised that the bridge was a death trap, guaranteed death if you stay up there, and sometimes it wasn't even my death, as if Joseph fell off, it would be more or less impossible for me to rescue him, therefore death. So the plan so far was, we spawn, snipe the first haunted, run up, snipe the second haunted, run down, snipe the third, and then turn back the way we came from the right hand side of the map so I could pick up more sniper ammo and snipe the last and final box before sprinting to the mini boss. Sounds simple, right? It was not. I died here nearly 100 times. I could not seem to catch a break, and I was honestly ready to give up for the night and try again another day. However, I gave it one last go. Now this time I had managed to kill all 4 boxes, which was amazing. All I had to do now was kill the remaining haunted and head to the boss. Or so I thought, because as I turned to hit the haunted, the door closed and the sadist is released, and finally I get a checkpoint. As you can tell, my brain was scrambled and only one word could be formed due to my excitement. Checkpoint! Checkpoint! A checkpoint! Now, even though I was horrendously under-equipped for the sadist fight, I didn't care. I was so happy to beat the last section that the sadist could squeeze me like a dog toy and I would thank him for it. But we got to killing. I don't know how I managed it, but like the first time, he went down first try, and I never have to deal with this stupid, awful section ever again. Chapter 6 is regarded as pretty much everybody's most hated and worst chapter, and I can tell why. This part was so unforgiving, but my lord, when I say that the serotonin flooded like a wave after beating the sadist, that would be an understatement. I was ready to fight God. So with that, we needed to finish the rest of the chapter because it isn't over yet. Next, Joseph gets kidnapped. We save him and protect him whilst he opens the door. Now the problem is I had barely any ammo, but someone from my chat reminded me of a cheesy little cheeky moment. If I stand on this plank in a particular spot, the haunted can't run past you, and more importantly, they can't actually hit you. Stand here, and then when Joseph opens the door, you run through. Simple. However, now we have to fight the twins again that protect the church. Honestly, the first went down easy as anything, however the second was an absolute unit and just ran into you, turning you into a wonderful, bright and vivid mist. Well, when I wasn't randomly exploding, that is. Now, I used all 4 of my brain cells in this moment and decided that hiding like a coward was the best way forward. Hiding under this statue thingy, and then when the twin turns his back, rattle him up a little bit. Joseph was once again useless, but by using some patience, we slowly chipped away and killed them both. Honestly, I just wanted this chapter done. The next big boss that we fought, because this chapter doesn't have enough difficult points, was the fluffy boy. He thankfully wasn't too tricky, and after a couple of attempts, we put the evil devil bastard Doug down, also collecting Joseph's stupid glasses again. My god, I hate Joseph. But we entered the church and finally put this nightmare of a chapter behind us. Now, thankfully, I knew Chapter 7 was going to be a dream. I knew how to play this as best as I could, so I ran through fairly quickly, killing enemies and collecting the 3 stone slabs that needed to unlock the door to the Keeper's lair. Once in there, we rescued Leslie again before Mr. Keeper makes his appearance. But since I knew what we were doing thanks to the Kill Him Only Twice achievement from the last video, I thought this was going to be fairly easy. And thankfully, the evil within Lords threw me a bone and we went through without a single problem. We killed him twice, avoided him and dodged our way through into the final section where we gave his brain case a good old-fashioned crushing. It only took us about 40 minutes to complete this section, so I was very thankful that we got to carry on quickly to Chapter 8. And the same with Chapter 8, I was fairly certain it would be an easier chapter. The chapter itself is very short and there honestly isn't that many moments where enemies can get the better of you. We started in the cave, quickly kill our way through the level. The only part that I thought might be tricky was where the baby mutant rat things rain on you whilst you're trying to open the door. However, if you look above, you can actually take them out whilst they're grouped together waiting, and a single shotgun bullet can take most of them out. So we carried on through the water, the trap door, and into the room where we are then chased down by a very angry pup. We sprint into the safe room, Rubik appears, and just like that, we're on to Chapter 9. And thankfully, Chapter 9, I can't lie to you again, was fairly easy for me. Since I'd just done a speeder of the game, I knew where to go, what part of the brains to probe, and the codes to the safes without having to stop and get slowed down. Now the best part is that since I was so quick with getting all of the info, Ruvik only chased us down once, and within maybe 5 minutes and no deaths, we had opened up the main manor door and was ready to chase down Leslie and Jimenez again. We then get all of Ruvik's backstory, as well as the encounter with Ant-Man, who we just outrun throughout all the sections before we quickly find ourselves in the barn once again where Laura died and Ruvik got burned. Now, I think this game was trying to make up for the shit show that was Chapter 6, but again, this part was fairly easy, as with my cracking pistol, when Ant-Man showed up to release the Haunted, we would kill them more or less before they even had a chance to stand up. So, he found Laura's body quickly and then vanished. We find ourselves in the manor again, go behind a door, and complete Chapter 9. Now, Chapter 10 is where things started to get tricky again. First, we had to power the merry-go-round doors to the next section, and this is where we are given many enemies who can shoot guns, which made it much trickier, as if you miss a shot and a shotgun-wielding maniac is sprinting towards you, well, you know, it's probably not going to end in your favour. It did take us a little while, I just needed a little bit of patience, but nothing that we haven't already dealt with, so we cracked on. In the next room, once again, we had to turn on the electricity. Now, the hordes of Haunted running towards me did freak me out, but thankfully, they died rather quickly. We turn on the power and get ready to deal with trauma, but a well-placed freeze ball and some good timing made this easy. Now, the next room had 2 traumas inside as well as a couple of guards. Since this was in closer quarters, this part was trickier. However, with the same tactic we just used on the earlier trauma, I load them into a smaller room, froze them, and then laid a Goldilocks trail of shock bolts to keep them at bay whilst I opened the door. Again, this gave me just enough time to slip past them. Now for the Laura boss, I was so confident. We knew about the cheesy method to kill her, and we knew the best way to get through, so I was so happy and confident going into this. However, I was wrong. This boss was a fecking nightmare. I assumed it because of the difficulty increase, but Laura was so much faster and used her abilities a lot more often, making her hard to hit and slow down. But with that information, we did start to the first section of the furnace, where I was reintroduced to bear traps. Now, oh boy do I have a bit to say about these bear traps, and they are the one aspect of this mode that I absolutely hated and that were horrendously unnecessary. The floor in all of these rooms are littered with insta-kill bear traps. Honestly, they are not needed. I think they're just a way for you to die a couple of times to annoy you into thinking that the level is harder than it is, which is ridiculous because the Laura fight is hard enough, and every time I died to one of these bear traps it just annoyed me, and I felt like it was a really cheap way to make the level harder. Like, I understand this is the hardest game mode, but just throwing needless bear traps into a level to make it seem harder just wasn't it for me and just really got on my nerves. But what kept me going is knowing that if I get her to the pipe of endless fire, life would be good and the boss would be done. Just getting there was the hard part. But eventually, we got to the sweet spot, shot the pipe, and Laura died from the fire. Problem solved. Oh... Not gonna lie, that nearly tipped me over the edge, from someone who has a working PC system to somebody who has a lovely pile of destroyed metal. But now, I suppose, we know the bear trap is there, we just have to make it back to that moment and burn her again. Problem solved. This broke me. This absolutely broke me, to the point where I was done for the day. But I'm a champion, and Akumu is my bitch, so we got back into it. And thankfully, Laura didn't cheat, we didn't bear trap ourselves, so we killed her, nicked her goo, and left. We carried on, met the Amalgam Alpha again, and thankfully he was so much easier to deal with. A couple of shots to the eye, a couple of grenades, and a bit of ammo later, he erupted into his final form, dead. And we got into the lift, finally ending this nightmare of a chapter as well that I honestly didn't think would be painful in the slightest. But alas, we continue. Chapter 11 wasn't as bad, thankfully. The only part that really hurt after this was the electric door bit, and that was only because there are way more SMG guys that just sprayed bullets, and one would always hit and kill you, every time, no matter what the distance. However, ending with a couple of shots of Magnum did make it much easier. I wished I honestly used it earlier to save some time, but I tried to save the bullets for later. And I know a lot of people struggled at this gondola crane bit here, but honestly, I don't know how I got through it in my second time. One shot would kill them or make them fall off the edge, so as long as I was quick, we were fine. The rest of the section was easy as hell as we saved Kidman, went through the gas room easily, and made it to Joseph on the bus ready for chapter 12. Again, like the normal run, this part was easy. Heresy was easy enough to knock off the bus, and when we got to the ambush part, I let Kidman and Joseph do most of the shooting until the way ahead was clear and we were ready to carry on. Heresy smashed his way into not breathing and Joseph got shot, so now it's time to get the anti-bullet juice again and save this worthless, horrible existence of a human. Now, to get to the ambulance was fine-ish. I died a couple of times, but once I got there, the real pain began, as I didn't realise that I had used every single last piece of ammo to get there. I only had 3 scrap pieces of metal, and that made this next part absolutely brutal. And honestly, I thought the run was dead here, as if you peeked out of cover even slightly, the minigun would tear you to shreds, and my one explosive bolt wouldn't activate and kill the turret enjoyer, so I was genuinely clueless on what I could possibly do here, and I actually started to get quite annoyed, I can't lie. But then I thought of a different method. By getting the turret to destroy the cars, I could move closer and closer. Then instead of crafting an explosive bolt, I could craft a light bolt, blind the user, and then get to the gun myself. It didn't work that well at first, but the next time I did it, I got my hands on the gun and shredded the rage and the hate that I had built up into every haunted that dare approach after that. We killed them all, I got back to the bus, and we rode into chapter 13. Now honestly, there is nothing to really note in this chapter, it's all the same grinding throughout the level. Once I reached this first couple of rooms, pain that I never knew of would come to haunt me. This part absolutely broke me again. We need to kill every enemy in this section so that we have enough time to turn off the acid trap and make our way down the floors. However, the problem was that I had barely any ammo, all of the enemies had guns and bulletproof masks, and I could not sneak up on them. Like, it was physically impossible to do so, and this drove me mad. I died here easily 50-60 times, minimum, and lost many brain cells. I could just not seem to catch a break at all. I would get shot, blown up, slapped over and over again until one time I had enough and decided to use more of my magnum. I also got insanely lucky with a couple of matches that really helped me save on ammo. I undid the acid trap and launched myself into the next checkpoint. Honestly, the rest of the chapter was easy, including the keeper room, and not before long we also finished chapter 13 and was only 2 more chapters to go before we have this beautiful achievement. Chapter 14 was surprisingly easy. We died a couple of times of course, but we made our way through the level with a certain style of ease. Only part that took me a minute was a train bit with the carriage of the bombs, but again fairly decent to handle. We did so well that not before long we actually found ourselves in front of the Quell boss and ready to put this fecker down. We froze him, gave him all of the magnum bullets that we'd been saving, and then did a couple of extra shots and finally put his nail in the coffin. We only died twice here and that was such a good feeling, as now we were on the final chapter and moments away from finishing this nightmare experience. Now the start of chapter 15 is again extremely easy, as it's just running from point to point until we get to the Room of Eyes. Now the room did make me a bit nervous as it spawns a hell of a lot of haunted. Yes, we died here a couple of times, but honestly with being careful where I stood, the amount of ammo that it gives you, and making sure I was shooting priority targets, we slowly worked our way through the horde until the sadist opened the door to the next part and snuffed it alongside his haunted friends. We got through on our 3rd try, and this honestly again really surprised me a lot. And also along the way we found more magnum bullets, which was phenomenal, as I knew we was about to have to deal with 2 beefy keepers next. But with magnum bullets we reduced them quickly into a fine paste, and just like that within 20 minutes we are at the final boss fight. Now once again, I feel like this is the easiest boss fight in the game, as all it is a couple of QTEs strung together. So we first hop in the car and shoot his brain until he then knocks us into the barbed wire. We rocket him in the brain a couple more times, and then when he gets bored of that he goes in for the final bite. However, a shot to the heart puts Ruvik down once again, and at this point I know I've done it. We stomp on Ruvik's brain, skip the cutscene, and like magic we unlock Master of Horror, and thankfully and finally you asked for it. It's time to finish the game completely as we go through the final 3 DLCs. Now starting, since I knew it was a standalone chapter, the first DLC that we tackle is the Executioner. Apparently the Mobius administration want to see if they could duplicate Ruvik's escape methods using a new STEM system that they've constructed. But having lost control of a new batch of test subjects, it's up to Pedro to enter the system using the Keeper as an avatar to rescue his daughter Marta and stabilise the system from within. And just like that, we spawn in a shack with a brand new safe as a brain. We pick up a hammer and get to work saving the system. We first must head to the Victoriano Manor. Since we're a big beefy boy with a hammer though, I waste no time in smashing the smeg out of everything around me. Now when we do that, we get coins, and these coins can be used to buy upgrades in a shop later on. We then make it to the manor where a brave and stupidly fearless haunted comes out to try and deny us entry. I retort by smashing him in the brain and yeeting him into a nearby fountain. Now, it's worth mentioning that this is already my favourite thing ever. Let me chuck a haunted as far as I can and watch how fast I spend my money on it. But we're not done, as when the enemy's health is low, we can perform an execution, and they are brilliantly brutal. However, I can't show them all unfortunately, as YouTube is a shite that doesn't like nasty violence. When we enter the manor though, we gain information on the situation before we then explore the house a little bit. We eventually make it to the room with the brain probe in for the first game and unlock a portal as one does. Our next mission, eliminate the sadist. We throw ourselves into the portal and spawn in a small area with eyes around the walls. These eyes spawn in enemies for us to throw into things before then the sadist appears. Now since we're the goddamn keeper, we smash him into a fine paste. He dies, we get coins, and the first mission is down and we spawn back into the manor, then unlocking the chainsaw for us to use ourselves. Now the idea is that every boss that we face and defeat are actually other rogue test subjects. Now Marta's mental degradation will slow down and eventually allow us to save her once we kill enough bosses. So for now, it's back to the boss smashing. The next portal that we find and boss we faced is Zen, one of the twins that guarded the church. Now this guy is much beefier than me, so it is much more of a tricky battle, and I might have to use some brains and cunning here to take him out. Fortunately for us though, this map spawns with harpoon miniguns that we can use to riddle him with holes. However, even with those, Zen takes our head clean off and we must try again. I then decide to go and buy some upgrades to make the fight fairer. Now, I wasn't expecting this. To upgrade the Keeper, we need to use these safes on the walls and go elbow deep into them. Not sure how this upgrades us, but I don't really want to know the answer actually. We upgrade some stats, buy the chainsaw, then leave. But when we do, a new portal spawns. Now these portals throw us into a room in the mansion where we must fight waves upon waves of different haunted. It doesn't take us long to win and there are several of them scattered throughout the levels, but we need to get back to fighting Zen. This time it goes much better, and after laying into him with sticks, he falls over and grants me some of his corpse coins. And by now I think you get the premise of what this DLC is about, and honestly I was loving it. It was such an amazing change of pace and playstyle that was really enjoyable, and totally what I want from DLCs in games. Now the next boss though was a true treat. Back in the main game I said very heavily that I hated the stupid waste of oxygen that was Joseph Oda, and now finally we get to kill him. However, he is taken over by the infection and ready for the fight. But this is a scrap that I've been waiting weeks for. We charge to him and give him everything that we possibly have. Now he does try his hardest by using his axe and molotovs, however a good kick to the head puts him down for good, and my lord did that feel amazing to do. That however was the final boss for this section, and by now going through this gap we enter the next. Also unlocking the first achievement of the DLC, Home Invasion. The next boss is soon right after, and it is another sadist, but this one is the RPG enjoyer. Now honestly he was just as easy as the first, and within seconds he is bonked to death and we unlock the next boss and his RPG. Now honestly there isn't much to say here as the DLC is fairly standard and follows a very samey path. However, the next boss is now the Amalgam Alpha. Sounds pretty intense to start with, but with this fight, if the Alpha throws a car at us, we can send it right back to the sender for massive damage, so we rely on this method until he is weak enough to smack with our hammer and be sent into the afterlife. And by killing this boss and moving on, we unlock the next achievement, the Craftsman Tools. We also tackle more of the haunted wave rooms and gain the next achievement, Got to Destroy the Brain, for executing 20 basic haunted. We then stumble into a room where we find the other rogue test subject, before then finding our daughter again and chasing after her. Now this is where it takes a weird turn, as it turns out that the notes we've been reading throughout the game so far have actually been powering Marta to a more dangerous level. When we get close to her, we actually fall over and emit a black goo. This black goo then travels to Marta, it picks her up, and a Dark Keeper spawns with Marta now in his arms. It turns out that this Dark Keeper is a manifestation of my own avatar, however this avatar plans to keep Marta imprisoned in STEM forever, so he's gotta go. We enter the portal he leaves in and then we're ready to fight him ourselves. Now this Dark Avatar is also a beefy bastard, except of a hammer he has a samurai sword that he carves us to pieces like butter. However, our hammer hits heavy, and by dealing a certain amount of damage he actually dies, leaving his safe head behind that we can then use to crush to start killing him. However, when we do this it also exacts the same amount of damage to us, so the Keeper realises that he must destroy his own avatar to kill the Dark Keeper and to save Marta. However, it could possibly kill him, a risk that to him seems worth it. Never have kids folks, you never know what you might have to do to save them. The Dark Keeper then respawns and we repeat the pain until we damage his safe box again. Until then he decides to cheat and spawns Laura's hands in to even the battle. The hands chase you around the entire room until he gets bored of waiting and spawns back in, and we go for the kill. We knock his block off and get ready for the final squish. When it breaks, we also drop to our knees and die ourselves. The screen goes white and we are back in the STEM lab. Marta has woken up and the final shot is of her holding our hand, unsure if we survived. However, we now have to go through it all over again and get the rest of the achievements. We also unlock several new items as well as the Sebastian boss battles, so yeah, we start again. You know how it goes, and there really isn't anything I can say other than what the achievements were needed. So the next we unlocked was for killing 10 basic haunted with a chainsaw for Crimson Chainsaw Massacre. We then carried on as normal as it was ready to face Sebastian ourselves. Now surprisingly, this man is simply cracked and can shred through your health in a matter of seconds, either by rapidly shooting you or by throwing hands, which is odd because in the base game his punches didn't do hee-haw. But in here, he quickly decapitates me and proves his avatar is the feck about and find out kinda bastard. Now, yeah, we struggled here as Seb is clearly the protagonist and killed us repeatedly. Now, instead of taking the time to upgrade and get stronger, we just kept trying until we're lucky enough to win. Eventually, we get the movement down as well as focusing on an attack that staggers him, and thankfully, the git eventually goes down and we unlock You Had This Coming. as well as a golden hammer with a tiny little adorable crown. However, all we need to do now is grab collectibles and grind items before tackling the last achievement. The next we easily gain is by throwing 10 basic haunted into death traps that spawn into the wave levels. By grinding and poking them to death, we then unlock Trapper and Keeper. Now, something here I haven't mentioned as well is that there is something called torments in this DLC, which you get for killing enemies in certain ways, such as executing them with a hammer to lighting them on fire, and by completing all of these torments we unlock our next achievement, Cruel and Unusual. And also by doing this we unlock the infinite ammo in the shop, which is going to make the rest of this absolutely futile. And by buying infinite ammo in the shop we actually get another achievement for unlocking everything called I Might Close Early. We then very soon after collect all of the hidden pages of our daughter's diary and unlock Nosy Parent before going for the most difficult achievement, to beat the entire DLC without getting hit once. Now honestly this may seem tricky to begin with, but since we have fully upgraded everything including the infinite ammo rocket launcher, this again was trivial. We killed the Dark Keeper for the 4th time, and by doing that we finished the game and unlocked I've Got Box of Steel. Now honestly I love this DLC, would have liked it to be a bit longer with a couple more boss fights potentially, as I was actually really eagerly waiting to face Laura that never actually happened, but I honestly can't complain with what we got, and it honestly was a lovely break from the gameplay that I was used to while still being familiar. Now we start the assignment. In this 2-part DLC we take control of Kidman as we explore through her journey into STEM and what she was actually there for. We start in the ambulance that fell over the cliff in the first chapter. However, with no one to be found, we exit and see the silhouette of a man before he disappears. We travel through the forest until we reach a cave, and once we enter it we hear shouting. But before we can do anything about that, the ambulance driver attacks us. We heal him in the jaw and fall down into the cave system. Moments later we find Leslie, but we are immediately transported into a room with a faceless man sat at a desk saying that he needs us at our best, and that this is a serious matter, before he asks us to follow him. Now we reach the best part of the game ever. In this Kidman DLC we save by having a kitten jump on us. I kid you not, this is how we save, and as a cat person it just made me very happy. We then catch up to the man in the suit again, who says that STEM has gone crazy and we need to go in to retrieve Leslie and pull him out of the system. However, everything is arranged and we should be fine as nothing else matters except our mission. We sit down in the chair and then get ready to start the assignment. We then wake up in the same room, and whilst we get our bearings the shade runs off and we start to work on our way to finding Leslie. Along the way also picking up a crucial flashlight. Now the Kidman DLCs play very differently to the main game, as for this for the most part we don't have a gun, so we must rely on stealth, bottles and the occasional axe to get from room to room and progress through the story. And since we can't fight Haunted head on, good stealth is absolutely crucial. We slowly creep our way through the level in which for now there is no enemies, until we find a room with a scared faceless man in it. So to help we crawl into the vent and go to talk to him, but as we make our way to him we hear him get mulched off screen, and as we exit the vent we can see the shade again walk off after a successful kill. This is where we then meet the first Haunted and get taught on how sneaking is crucial. It takes us some time to get used to the new system and movement, and before long we are going through it in our stride. In the next room we see a keeper head on the table, and by completing the puzzle on it unlocks and we retrieve a piece of scrap paper. Now for both the Kidman DLCs there are 3 forms of collectibles: the scrap pieces of paper, research documents and also personnel files. And for achievements unfortunately we need to grab them all. On the way though we pick up our first achievement in the DLC that has us ring a phone, and then when a Haunted goes to investigate the noise we lock the door so they can't escape. Doing so unlocks Prank Call. However, we make it through the door and press on. Well, I say press on, we actually get stuck in the next room as our palm print has been removed from the system, and when we go to override the door, the entire room goes dark and the shade comes to investigate. Now, bizarrely enough, it doesn't find us, but it actually does reveal a neat trick. By shining its light in specific spots, it can actually summon doors and paths that can't normally be seen. So when we do the same with our flashlight, it creates a new door to escape through. We kick the door in and find the sawbox that we were trapped in, before being sent back to the STEM base from the beginning. Now, this part won't be believable for you. However, when exploring we found a snail just hanging out inside a vent, and when we burn the snail with a flashlight it erupts into love, as well as making some questionable sounds. Now this snail just gives you extra models and soundtracks, however I couldn't not mention this bizarre feature that absolutely confused the hell out of me. However, back to the grind. Eventually moving forward we see a vision of Jimenez again, this time talking to the Morbius man, and the faceless man basically warns us that time is running out and he needs results as soon as possible. Jimenez goes to show the man something before then disappearing. We continue though and find them again. This is basically them setting up STEM for the first time, and talking about Ruvik being the host, even if he is a bit mental and unstable as all hell. For the sake of ease though, Kidman now needs to put her ID back into the system so that she can get throughout the facility. However, whilst adding our fingerprints, we're introduced to a new type of enemy, the Cadaver. These explosive bastards are blind, however if you get too close to them they will instantly erupt and send wonderfully packaged chunks of Kidman around the room. Next we make it through a small horde of them before finding the last computer and uploading our brain scan or something to complete the process. No idea, however we now have our ID again and can get about. We get past the door we couldn't, piss our little frillies when a haunted appears and make it into the next section. We then see Sebastian and Joseph go up in a lift, so not wanting to see Joseph at all, we head downstairs. And no, I will not stop hating on Joseph, ever. We eventually find ourselves in a server room and go to call the lift again, but as we do, the lamp lady decides to make her triumphant return. And now we must stay hidden whilst the room charges power to bring the lift down to us. And you know, if we get caught, munch. Now, of course we died here a couple of times as the sexy legged lamp is fast as hell, but eventually we make it to the doors and sprint inside before the shade can come and get us. We see Joseph and Sebastian again, but they can't hear or see me. When we turn around, Ruvik then appears. He tells me that Gullible is written on the ceiling before pushing me out of the saw trap from the main game. Now, honestly, I thought this was clean as hell. With that, the first chapter is complete and we gain the achievement, A Different Beginning. Then chapter 2 starts us in the sewers after Laura grabbed us. We grind through the level until we dive into some water. Whilst walking through though, things go wrong and we fall through onto our face and get caught under some rubble. With the shade looking down on us, now she can actually reanimate dead haunted, but since we're trapped we need to rely on a nearby gun to get through this section alive. Enemies are sent towards us and we need to be quick to take them all out. Fortunately, I'm the Punisher incarnate and blitz through all of the enemies with zero problems. The shade then jumps down and flees before we can spark her out, and with the potential death being taken care of, we unstick ourselves and crack back on. The next path has us going through a couple of rooms of haunted, but in the first room there are actually pressure activated traps. Spend enough time on it and the spikes burst through the floor, kebabbing anything that's on top of it. Now I know there's an achievement here as we have to trigger a trap and kill 2 haunted at the same time. I think that's child play. I'm gonna go for 4. We round up the lovely haunted and get ready to skewer them, but knowing his death is imminent, a haunted grabs me and holds me in place. All 4 of us get punctured and we unlock clutch. However, we reload and make it through the section fairly easily. We open the door and then chase after Joseph. We drop down and find him at the door where Sebastian will then come and find us. However, now we thankfully say sod off Joseph and go our own way. We make it through a door where Mobius then finds us again. He tells us that we are losing focus and nothing matters but finding Leslie, and he warns us that Ruvik knows we're here. Obviously. And now apparently Joseph is also making things harder, so we are ordered to kill him. Yes please, many thank yous. But then Mobius says that we're disappointing him before we appear back with Sebastian and Joseph. However, moving through, Joseph turns, chokes us, and says he knows who we are and why we're here, before we are then transported into a boss fight in which we must dodge Joseph, grab axes, and slice him to all hell. To be honest, this boss fight as well was dead easy as Joseph is blind as all hell, so it was easy to get the jump on him. We stab him 3 times before he drops to his knees and turns back to normal, also unlocking us that all you need is axe achievement for not distracting him with any electronics that are scattered around. We then wake up again, this time in a lovely little house. In here we also get our next achievement for collecting all of the personnel files for A Piece of My Past. We then appear back at a market and find Leslie. Chasing him down, we are greeted to more dialogue from Morbius and our next achievement for collecting all of the research documents for Doctor's notes. The next part has us deal with a couple of sections of Haunted. Nothing too painful, but we get yet another achievement here for getting a cadaver to kill a Haunted. So we bait some Haunted, throw a bottle at the feet to gain its attention, and collect our sweet reward when it hops onto the Haunted and explodes, giving us Death Grip. We then make our way through the rest of the level and reach Leslie, who lets us by, our target acquired. But also speaking of acquired, we find the last page scrap. Then by clumsily putting the letter back together, we unlock a warning. Kidman and Leslie then enter the church, but of course Ruvik appears again, but now takes full control of Leslie and makes him attack Kidman before they both disappear into smoke. Morbius then reappears and says that Kidman cannot disobey orders, and since she let Leslie go, she must go get him back immediately, even though she says she can't because Ruvik is far too strong and always appears when she gets close to him. Then in this tense sequence, Morbius and his many shadow limbs start to chase us down. Since we don't want to die, we take off to running. He follows us and tries to grab us, us with his shadowy fingies. However, we run so far that we actually burst through a door, see Beacon Hospital, and get its light shining on me, and we finish the DLC. We then unlock the achievement Not As It Seems and unlock New Game Plus. Now, just to finish this DLC, we have to go through it all again, this time on the difficulty Kuriyami, which changes the game so that the entire DLC is in complete darkness, and I mean darkness. If your flashlight isn't on, you cannot see a thing. Like, nothing. However intimidating this may be though, honestly, it was easy as hell, because I'd just already gone through the DLC. I was still very fresh on how to deal with it all, and without having to collect stuff, I just threw myself through the levels at a faith's pace. In no time at all, we're back at the Morbius chase, we complete that again, finish the DLC in just an hour and 15 minutes, and unlock the last achievement for it, Not Afraid of the Dark. And with that, we only have one DLC left and only 10 achievements before we can take this mammoth of a game and add it to the 100% list. So we follow up immediately with the consequence. The game starts straight away. We wake up in a hospital bed, but unless this is the shortest DLC in history, we know that it's not good. We get to the door, we get transported to the save room from the main game and meet Tatiana. She is as useless as ever, so we quickly leave. When we do though, we spawn into a room that's full of TVs that play other conversations with Morbius and Jimenez, saying that Leslie is the chosen one. So we push through. It's back to more sneaking around, which is fine, as we're pretty much used to it at this point. However, something that we're not used to is a haunted coming out of nowhere and making us drop our flashlight. We lob him over the edge and now have to rely on glow sticks to make it to the power room. Now, there's actually an achievement here that I didn't know about, which is to turn the power on only using 10 glow sticks maximum. Now, we didn't get this in our first playthrough because I was just chucking them about as often as I could, rather recklessly actually. However, we do this in the later playthrough, but I thought it'd be easier to mention it here whilst I'm talking about it. We dodge haunted and eventually make it to the power switch, turn it on, and since we didn't use 10, we pick up the achievement Fumbling in the Dark. Working on our way through the facility further though, we eventually make it to another vision of Morbius, this time talking to Ruben himself. Ruben says that Morbius needs him for all of this work to be done before he disappears and the room turns into a BDSM workshop. Not that I know what one of those looks like. Anyway, in the next room we find the Shade seemingly dying in a chair. We walk up to it and mess around with its face light to reveal a door. We gift her a couple of glow sticks and get ready to move, but of course, it's not dead, and we need to run as fast as possible. We enter another section where we have to wait for a door to open whilst it stalks us, and again, this was surprisingly easy. We make it through into the lift again, but instead of taking the L like a champ, the Shade goes off to show her fancy footwork. However, we make it to the next room, and in said room is a wall of eyes, and we find our flashlight again, which I was really happy about because I hated the glow sticks. In the next room we see another vision of Jimenez and Morbius, this time Morbius showing the brain of Ruvik is going to be used in STEM. Jimenez is actually not a fan of this at all, however now that he can actually get STEM to run, he soon comes around. However, moving on, Morbius grabs us and says that we're not doing a good job and again, disappointing him. However, since Kidman knows that Morbius is lying to us, she doesn't care and wants to find out the truth, as how can she trust Morbius when everything he says is a lie? But he says she's not required to trust, only obey, so would you kindly just move on please? It's more of the same, work our way through sections of rooms and enemies, either ignoring them, pushing them to the death, or cleaving their bastard skull in. We make it to a room, spawn a lift, and take it. Morbius appears again and says, "This is my last chance, bring in the boy," or well, who knows. Kidman says, "Feck off dog food face," and continues. We appear at the gondola bit again and here also find a gun. We take it and now we get to shoot just like we love doing with Sebastian. We kill some enemies and press on to a weird walk-in until the Shade then appears and takes us to another boss fight. But now I have a gun. So we use it and riddle the demented Pixar lamp until it just keels over. It erupts into the forbidden jam and we seal the deal with a hefty stamp. We then spring through the hallway, open a door and appear in front of Sebastian, like we did in the main game after he rescued us. He then transports us though, turns into an infected, and we shoot him in the brain which knocks him out cold. We apologise to him and lock him in the room, but on our way, of course, once again we see Leslie and make our way to him. But bloody Morbius appears again and stops us from shooting Leslie as she realises giving him to Morbius probably isn't the best idea. Instead, Morbius chases us yet again, but instead of shadowy fingers, he uses wooden pallets to block us off. Man, sometimes I really feel like these bosses just want us to get away. However, then Heresy appears again, and we end the chase where we hop onto the bus and get ready to storm Beacon Hospital again, completing chapter 3 and gaining Things Fall Apart. Only one chapter left now folks, so when we start we are now back in the hotel and give the most pathetic attempt in grabbing the gun before it slides off the falling rubble and vanishes. We walk through and are greeted with Ruvik, who talks to us through an ant painting. So since we don't like talking to paintings because we're not mental, we burn it, which clears the way. We walk into a new room where Ruvik possesses Leslie again, and we need to burn all of the paintings in said room. It's fairly easy, and when we burn through them all, it frees Leslie and he just runs off again. Again, we just work our way through the level, but when I hop into this room, it looks oddly familiar, as we can see the food lifts that save Sebastian's life from the Keeper. We can actually hear him and press this button, gaining the achievement A Real Hero for saving his life. It turns out that Kidman is the one that sent the lift back down to him, and the DLC is scattered with these little extra pockets of knowledge where it shows that Kidman was doing something that interacts seamlessly with the main game. I loved that. Then we find Leslie, who has been taken over by Ruvik again, but we know what to do. We burn the painting behind him. As we do though, Laura then randomly grabs us and Ruvik/Leslie goes to shoot us. He does, but instead of hitting us, he hits the painting behind us and ends the control sequence, and we get a fabulous new gun. We leave the hotel into the playground and also get the achievement There Will Not Be Blood for completing the entire hotel sequence without alerting an enemy or killing one. At the playground, Leslie then talks about going home, but Kidman says that he can't. He runs off, but then without warming, he starts transforming into Ruvik. Time freezes and Leslie and Ruvik glitch in place, so we go to shoot. Morbius then once again appears to stop us. They already know how powerful he is, but they don't care. Kidman says that she cannot let Ruvik get Leslie by any means, even if that means killing Leslie. But as we turn around, Morbius disappears, revealing Sebastian, and Kidman kills Joseph. Thank God. This scene again was great, as it totally changed the way that the scene played out from the original game, and I loved that. But now we're back at Beacon Hospital, but not before long, as when we make our way through the hospital rooms, it turns into the sadist slaughterhouse from the beginning of the base game. We run through just like Sebastian did, but instead of plunging down the death slide, we make it to the door on the other side. In there are some offices from the last section, and inside is Sean, who has a little bit of red on him, and a shotgun in his hand. So instead of waiting for all of this to blow over, we instead take the shotgun and blow his brain hollow. We then make our way into the sewers, where we are then ambushed by a million haunted and cadavers, so we sprint past them all instead of fighting. We then make it inside the STEM offices again, and Morbius appears to say thanks for letting us in, as Morbius went into STEM within Kidman, and that's how he is haunting her now. We barge through rooms, pick up the last personnel file for the DLC, and gain becoming an agent. Then, just literally seconds later, we get the last torn pages and throw them together in this DLC for This Is Just the Beginning, and because we're not done yet, we get the last research document for It's All Your Fault. So, let's get this DLC finished as well. We take a lift and Morbius tells us that we are too scared, but get scared enough and you can be controlled and moulded. And we are actually the first test subject to serve under being too scared, I guess. But we find Leslie in the milk hot tub rooms and also see Ruvik's brain. So, we shoot the brain. And we're done with the DLC as the credits roll. We also see a picture of the best friends just being silly gooses before we're thrust back into the room and lock the achievement Stick to the Script, which I honestly thought was hilarious. We move on to the room where Sebastian confronts us and protects Leslie, and this scene again plays so differently now that we know why Kidman is doing what she's doing. We know the rest. Ruvik absorbs Leslie, and the brain sends us to a maze room thingy with, of course, Morbius in front of us. God, I'm getting bored of saying Morbius. But he tells us that we've failed and, you know, it's time to die. He then makes several clones and says that it's Morbin time, before he then goes to finish the job. However, by shooting his clones and eventually him when he goes to grab us with his red hand, he takes damage. Do this a couple more times and he laughs and transforms into a room. Now 2 haunted Kidman clones appear and they are fast as hell, so we need to put these phonies down before they choke us to death. Several shotgun shots later they fly into death and Morbius appears for the final time, so we sprint after him ready to end this piece of shite. When we reach him, he tries to squash us with the shadow arms again, but we simply do not consent and instead shoot the stem symbol on the hands until he dies. We then spawn back in his office with the real human Morbius on his knees. He says, "Do you think you've really won?" But a bullet in the face would suggest that yes, I really did indeed win. And we did. The credits roll and we unlock the achievement Where Do We Go From Here? And with that, we are on the last and final achievement to go through once again on Kuriyami. Honestly, I wish there was more to say about this difficulty, but it was just literally the same as before, but dark. So when we booted it up again, I knew we would breeze through this, and breeze through this we did, as we stormed past every level and section with ease, and even the final boss fight wasn't that tricky in the dark, because it wasn't in the dark, which confused me. We killed Morbius one more time and unlocked the achievement None More Dark. And with that, we are finally done with the Evil Within. We have 71 out of 71 achievements and this nightmare is finally done. The grind is over. Honestly, I adored this game so much. It needed a touch more polish in my opinion, but it was a wonderful horror game with a perfect blend of action and scares. Even Akumu was enjoyable, which really proves that this game is fun. The DLCs were also a fantastic addition in giving the story some more substance, and even though after a while the stealth sections with Kidman did get a little bit boring, it reminded me heavily of the MJ sections in the Spider-Man game, but it changed things up yet again, and that's what I love for DLCs, so no complaints from me. Honestly, on the whole, I would say that this game is a fantastic horror, and maybe 100%ing achievements is a little bit much. I would still play this game again and thoroughly enjoy myself. However, it's finally time to get to the stats. For The Evil Within, it took us 82 hours to grind all 71 achievements. I will be easily giving this game an 8 out of 10, as there are some changes I would make, but for its time and the gameplay, it's pretty great. The achievements, of course, I will also be giving the highest rating I have yet by giving this game an 8 out of 10. Not only is Akumu a nightmare to go through, but you have to play through all of the sections multiple times, hit very specific chapter achievements and do a lot of grinding as well. So definitely not for the faint heart, and it comes to a shock as nobody when I say that the hardest achievement for sure is of course You Asked For It. Now, for a bit of context about this run, for my first playthrough I have to play on Nightmare difficulty, as there is an achievement to unlock all of the weapons, and that does include the brass knuckles for completing the game on Nightmare difficulty. We're also going to be getting all of the oh so many collectibles in this game: the files, the residual manifests, the keys for the lockers, the guns, the coffee machines, the Easter egg trophies and the slides, which is just a lot. And we're also going to be tackling all of the chapter specific achievements as well, so that when we do New Game Plus there's only a little that we need to grind to clean up, before of course then going through the game on Classic again. The game begins with a house fire. A surprisingly clean shaved Sebastian breaks into his house and storms into his daughter's room ready to save her, but instead she berates us for not being there for her, and she erupts on us before of course we wake up. 'Twas all a dream. When we get our bearings, a familiar face is then sat across from us. Kidman. It has been 3 years since we last met and she is here with some information, as well as 2 Mr. Smith looking goons. Kidman then tells us that our daughter is still alive, and staging a child's death is child's play for Mobius compared to all that they've done. But Lily is now in danger and we need to save her. Mr. Smith tries to calm me down, so instead I introduce him to an ass kicking though, but Kidman ruins the fun by drugging us. When we awake, we're inside the Mobius facility, and Mr. Mobius is back to introduce STEM 2.0, apparently vastly improved. And you guessed it, Lily is the new mind of STEM. Apparently she is the most stable a candidate has ever been, but John Hamm reveals that things have gone wrong and Lily has vanished. They sent some agents inside to retrieve her and they too are now missing. So with no choice, we hop in the Milk Tub 2.0 and get ready to face the evil within. Oh my god, is that why it's called the evil within? Huh, nice. We enter STEM and sink into the upside down, straight into a title card. And when we find a communicator on a table, we get transported back to Sebastian's old office. And this is the safe room. We talk to Kidman and we're successfully in. We see a notice board of the Mobius agents as well that came in, and as well the stunning cat from the DLC from the first game. We then find our old friend the Mirror and go straight through. A short cutscene then plays of us at home with Lily and our wife Myra. We share a nice moment before we move on to the spooks. We then appear in some sort of fancy ass building, and the mind games are already beginning, as when we go through a door we see that the leader of the security team has been shot in the head and the moment of his death is being replayed indefinitely in a bizarre slow motion cube. And yes, I'm sorry we have to censor this, but we have to be careful with YouTube, so just know that he's deader than a can of spam. But unfazed we move on, to eventually we find a room and see a man run from an unseen danger. The danger then teleports and we see what's behind the death cubes. This man with a thirst for death and a magic camera. We evade around the sharply dressed maniac and carry on, and soon find ourselves in a room filled with hanging corpses. But when we go to leave, the man surprises us with our own personalised portrait. We find the picture that he took, but before we can question it, a woman appears in the mirror. Well, is it a woman? Or is it a gigantic, terrifying, hulking, fecking monster? Ah yes, the monster, also known as the Guardian. Well, time to run. The Guardian follows us, but with a closed door and a bit of time we escape her. Or maybe not, as a second later she bursts out of the room and we take off running. But the picture bro decides to cheat and throw a knife at us mid-sprint. The Guardian picks us up, but we use the knife to slash her in the face and make our escape. We're safe for now, especially now that we have a gun and our first achievement, Welcome to Union. However, we soon discover another woman. Now it turns out she's a feeder, so instead of welcoming us to the family, she instead goes to take off our head, so we instead take off hers. These are of course the new haunted called the Lost, but regardless of death we need to make it to a place called Union, which is the village that Stem based the entire town on. We find a sign that says Welcome to Union, and when we make our way down the street we see two more Mobius agents sprinting away, but unfortunately one of them dies for saving his teammate. So we need to break into the house he went into to guilt trip him for that. Now we did die here a couple of times, it did take a little bit of getting used to, but we did eventually make it into the house, and then we find O'Neill. It takes a moment for us to trust each other, but we need to, as O'Neill might have found information out about Lily. We find out that he isn't a soldier, he is a technician brought in to reprogram something. We say that we're here to find the core who is Lily, but he can't help other than saying that there are some weird signals all over town. So we pair our communicators and he gives us a side mission for some extra gear as well. And also in this room there is a workbench so we can finally upgrade our ammo and craft some new weapons, and by making some pistol bullets we also get our next achievement, DIY. Now this is where we reach the first open world section of the game. In Evil Within 2 there are 3 or 4 chapters that open up the terrain to make it not quite so linear. Chapter 3 is one of them. In this chapter you can explore, complete side quests, and go on the hunt for ammo and such. And I was looking forward to seeing how a non-linear chapter would compare to the straightforwardness of the other chapters and from the previous game. But before we leave the safe room we also decide to travel to our other safe room, which we see a familiar chair, and when we sit in it, a familiar nurse appears. Tatiana is back, and once again she teaches us about the upgrades we can make to Sebastian himself, and there are a ton more options this time than there were in the first game, which is nice, but back to Union. When we leave the safe house, the world around us starts to crumble, the roads fall through and leaves us stranded on this rock. Now I'm not going to go through every single little thing that we did, but for the first thing that we do is we find a broken sniper rifle on top of a roof, which we need to fix for an achievement later on. And we also come across yet another familiar friend behind this truck, the Warden's crossbow. We pick it up and get our next achievement, Good to See You Again. The world then crumbles a bit more and fire hydrants break. So when a group of Lost run into the water, we shock it and unlock another achievement, Shock Therapy. Moving on through the level, we soon find a house with a computer. When we use said computer, it takes us to the Mobius facility to explore some more. Now nothing really of note happens here besides us gaining the shotgun and heading back to Union. Now honestly, the open worldness of this chapter was such a breath of fresh air, as no matter where we went and what we did there was always things to find and stuff to do, which was really nice and made this section really interactive. And we also got a couple more achievements here. Running through the town, the next that we got was for silently killing 10 Lost for I Am the Night, and then a couple of minutes later we killed our 30th Lost for thinning them out. After that we explored some more and we used a workbench to upgrade our guns, and when we used a high grade weapon part to unlock some more upgrades for the handgun, we of course get another achievement called Making Things a Little Easier, and then by upgrading the pistol to level 3 we also unlocked Now You're Playing with Power. We then sit back in Tatiana's chair to upgrade Sebastian more. When we unlock more options to upgrade him with the red gel, you guessed it, another achievement unlocks. This time you got red in you, which I hope is a reference to Shaun of the Dead there. Then we see a horde of the Lost ahead. We decide to use a car and the oil that it's spilling to blow them all to Kingdom Come, but I'll just show you the chaos that happens here instead. Come on, 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 come on. Oh, look how lovely this puddle is. Move! Kick, shoot, bend, that was an achievement! Yeah, that was crazy. But we eventually reach the top of the hill where we see a remnant of Lily, and when we use our communicator to hone in and see what happened to her, we find her doll and get visions of her running away from somebody. She locks herself in the room, and then when something comes a-banging, she drops her doll and escapes through the open window. Back with Sebastian, we head behind the restaurant to figure out where she went, and out back we also find a new signal to go and investigate. However, a new type of enemy now decides to make an appearance. These are the Spawn. They are fast, aggressive, and very effective in injuring you, so when they kill us, we simply run the other way the next time, which is so much more effective. We escape into a house where we also have another bizarre moment. The lights flicker and the scenes change, and we hear a therapist talking to Sebastian about the events of the first game. We then spawn in a place that seems very reminiscent of Beacon. When we go through a door, we also see ourselves slumped in a chair. When we investigate ourselves, hands grab us that look scarily like Laura's. However, we wake up back in the house and ready to crack back on. And by crack back on, I mean have another moment, as when we enter another house and find a journal, everything gets super cold. When we go to leave, the anima appears, a crazy Onryo type creature that is dead set on getting Sebastian and draining his life force. So we have to be the stealthiest we have ever been to avoid this creature that can phase through walls and is technically completely invincible. So fighting is pointless. We eventually outrun it though and make it back to the house. Continuing on to find Lily though, we unlock a couple more achievements. The next is for killing 60 Lost, we unlocked clearing a path, and by using the ambush upgrade to stealth kill a Lost from around a corner, we also unlocked wait for it. And throughout chapter 3 as well, we also found all of the memories of the soldiers that were part of O'Neill's team. And by finding out that all of them are dead, we need to head back to him to report that and complete his mission. We tell them that they're all dead, and he gives us some weapon parts, and more importantly, the achievement backup ain't coming. Now with everything in chapter 3 done, it's time to find Lily and move on. So we track her to a big warehouse in the middle of the map and break through to find her.
She probably crawled through here. Gotta get through.
You're so brave.
She's a brave and resourceful little girl.
Okay, shit, I was right. But on the top floor of the facility, we find her doll again. Picking it up also gives us another vision of her running away. Now, the person she is running away from is the picture man, who is called Stefano. We don't find that out until a little bit later on, but I don't want to keep calling him just the picture man. But he does find and take Lily, so now we must find him. However, the next thing that we find is our next achievement, taken. However, Stefano fulfills our wishes. When we go to leave, he does appear. We question him about the girl, but instead of answering, he sends an eye moon to spawn some, well, spawn. Now, we kill them with haste, but with no clue how to continue, O'Neill tells us that he can help. We travel back and he says that we can enter a place called the Marrow, a section of STEM that was meant to be completely safe as it connects points of the Union together. It's also the place we was in earlier when we found the shotgun. But to get to City Hall where Stefano has gone, we need to get into the Marrow and use a gas mask he gave us to make it through safely. And with that, we're officially on chapter 4, so time to head to the Marrow. We find the computer and throw ourselves into it. Now, there is a couple of tough fights throughout this, but we get through it pretty safely and make it to the other side. And when we emerge from the building, we are outside City Hall and see Stefano walking into there, so we of course go to follow. When we approach though, the big eye shines a light and a familiar friend appears once more, the Guardian. Probably my favourite enemy design in the game. I mean, look at her, she's phenomenal. Now for this fight there are 2 achievements tied to it. The first is, well, not to fight at all, as if you run behind the building you can instead break through this door and negate the fight completely. It takes a little bit in a couple of attempts, but once we burst through the door we unlock the achievement, sometimes fighting isn't the answer. But not happy with that and knowing that fighting is indeed the answer, we reload the save and this time go to kill her. Now, honestly, she is a tough cookie and she is also quick, so by using our shots expertly and using camera traps around the level to slow her down, we eventually get her low on health, and with a final shotgun bullet to the cranium, the Guardian dissolves and is defeated, and we unlock the achievement not running this time. We then enter City Hall and find a pretty bloody soldier. He tells us to forget the core for now as we need to turn on an emitter that will stabilize the environment, as if we don't, Union will just collapse into itself, but it will also weaken Stefano, so it's a win-win. We go to do just that. And along the way, picking up our next achievement for finding 20 of the 40 files in the game as well for doing some detecting. Now, of course, it's not that easy, as when we find the emitter, we get a true Evil Within experience with 2 boss fights 5 minutes apart. As when we start the sequence to turn the emitter on, Stefano appears and freezes us in a picture. He monologues about how he knows we're here for the girl and not for him, however he thinks we want her power. He also threatens my eyeball, which I absolutely hate, and gives us a kick-ass new scar. He introduces himself finally as Stefano and says that we are now his art before he disappears. But he's not the boss that I meant, this is the Obscura. We don't like them, but for this fight you don't actually need to kill the Obscura. Its job is to freeze the emitter so that it can never reach the countdown, but by injuring the boss it stops the freeze and continues to tick down, and basically just rinse and repeat that until the countdown is done. Honestly, another pretty cool boss fight, as not killing it but stalling it rather is a pretty decent way of changing it up. And when the countdown reaches 0, the emitter turns on and everything disappears and goes back to somewhat normal. Time to head back into the Marrow. When we leave City Hall, we talk to Kidman again and we mention Stefano and talk about Lily some more. And also that we don't really trust Kidman, because why would we? But once again, we enter the Marrow and a new path opens up, so we take it. Ugh, this bit. Now, when we get a certain way into this, the walls are covered with psychoplasm. And yes, it is psychoplasm, not what you're thinking of, so get your head out of the gutter. Nothing else.
Whoa. What the hell is this stuff?
Obviously come. Alright, I mean, don't judge me, okay? The devs clearly knew what they were doing here, and I know we were all thinking it anyway. We fight our way through it and see a conversation between Sebastian and his wife saying that Myra thinks that a secret society stole Lily and staged her death. We didn't believe her, but boy do we now have egg on our face. However, we haven't seen anything yet, as when we open the door in the next room, we see a ginormous monster made out of the, well, yeah. This is the Watcher, and I will be calling it that so that this video doesn't get restricted. However, we simply just run past it and think we're safe, but it does grab us. The goo emerges, so we shoot it in its slimy face a couple of times, injure it and make our escape. In the next room we see security cameras and realise that somebody has been watching us the entire time, and that person is right behind us. When they hold a gun to our back, we say that Kidman sent us and that we are Sebastian, but the person says that Sebastian is dead and she doesn't believe us. And when she emerges from the shadow, we can tell that it's Hoffman, another member of the rescue team. Now, like O'Neill, Hoffman isn't a soldier, she's a very well-trained psychologist. She knows that we're not lying because of micro expressions, but I think she's just been watching too much Lie to Me. We then talk to her about Stefano, and Hoffman says that he is a classic psychopath, so the best way to get to him is by damaging something of his that he loves, and since he considers himself an artist, we need to attack his art to get through to him. And we head off, also unlocking the next achievement, the team psychologist. We then leave the safe house again and into chapter 7. Now, chapter 7 is the same as 3, with it being somewhat open worlded again, so like chapter 3, we need to get the collectibles, complete the side missions and whatnot before we carry on. The first thing we find is another residual manifest to check. Guardian! Okay, Guardian. I don't like it. I don't like it. Honestly, my soul left my body there, but now we have another Guardian roaming around the map, which is just bob on. However, the first thing that we do here is check out a manifest from somebody who unalived themselves as they were being chased by something. And when we find out, the jukebox goes mental. When we interact with it, the anima returns once again, and we're back in Beacon. We do lose it eventually and come by a mirror where we see our past self, but now we must run away again. We eventually make it out of Beacon and return to the diner and carry on our mission. Now, for a little context, throughout the gameplay currently, I haven't used any locker keys, as when you use them in New Game Plus, you get 10 times the amount of green gel from lockers than you would do in the base game. So for saving them for New Game Plus, it really helps level Sebastian up later. However, at this point, I have no ammo, no materials, and now 2 Guardians and a bunch of other enemies are on the map and I need ammo. So I opened some lockers to try and get some. And fortunately, it was working. Every locker had ammo for something or gunpowder in it, and by doing this we also unlock our next achievement for opening half of the lockers for half the stash. And here we also upgraded some more weapons, specifically the smoke arrow, which is really good once upgraded. By upgrading this, we unlock the ability to insta-kill zombies that are affected by the smoke, and here lies our next achievement as well, as by killing 3 enemies that are blinded by the smoke, we unlock the achievement Smoke Assassin, and we also get flung across the map for some reason. For now though, we start our next side mission, helping this Mobius soldier survive a little horde of the Lost, and by shooting the water with another shock arrow and stomping on the Lost's faces, we unlock the achievement for killing 15 enemies with our boot, unlocking bootable offense. We save the Mobius agent's ass and we follow this operative back into the safe house. This man is Sykes. He is a STEM programmer and also has a bit of a dab hand at hacking. He also tells us that if we travel into the Marrow and turn a server on, he might be able to help us open a connection to get everybody out of STEM, so we go to do that. Honestly, there isn't much to mention here, it's dead easy, and barely 10 minutes later the servers are back online and we take our leave and head back to Sykes. The servers are online and the mission is complete, but now we're done with the collectibles and the extras for this level. It's time to get to the theatre. When we go to the gates, 2 paintings stand in our way though, and Stefano calls us on the walkie-talkie. He teases us with Lily's voice, so we need to find the paintings and destroy them to get to him and to finally end this. Fortunately, whilst I was also looking for the collectibles, we'd already found where the paintings were. So seconds later we were at our first one. But of course destroying it won't be easy, especially when a hand reaches out and pulls us inside it. In here we have to find a key to unlock the door to destroy the artwork, but the Obscura is back. Honestly, this part was dead easy though. We grab the key and head back, barely missing the creature, but it wasn't that hard at all. We make it to the artwork, slash it and get thrown back into Union. The painting then destroys itself, and now we just need to do it one more time. However, when the next picture pulls us in, it's not the Obscura, but a small horde of the Lost that we need to fight past. Again, fairly easy to do, and we succeed in destroying his artwork. And now the entrance to the theatre is open. We enter it and get ready to face Stefano. He commends our efforts but say that both us and Lily will make his grand masterpiece and he cannot wait. We enter the theatre and notice that every seat is filled with people with masks on. Stefano then appears and says that he has the core and he was meant to give it to somebody else, but knowing her power, why would he give Lily away? He clenches his fists and bombs in everybody's masks start to beep. He unclenches and every head explodes at the same time, with them also frozen in that exact moment. I can't show it unfortunately, but it is pretty insane. For those of you who've seen the first Kingsman film, just think of the ending. Stefano walks away and we chase him down, ready to end this once and for all. Now Stefano is a scary opponent. He teleports a lot during his fight, which makes him quite tricky to hit, but he also does have dialogue for every time he attacks, so we at least know what's coming. And with a couple of good sniper shots to the dome, he gets angry and unleashes his secondary form. Now admittedly, this becomes a much more intense fight. His aperture attacks, his teleporting is faster, and is much more erratic, and he has this stupid attack in which he can just grab you and just delete your health, which is really difficult to avoid. Now this does kill us quite a bit to be honest, and the tentacles also contribute to that quite a bit, so I knew we needed to avoid those tentacles specifically. Right, we're gonna dodge the tentacle, folks. That's what we're gonna do. You are a f***ing nightmare. Yeah, that was a really embarrassing moment, but eventually we whittle his health away until Sebastian is victorious. The aperture dissolves and we get the achievement premature finale. Stefano complains that he had so much more art to make and we've just ruined that, but he is now his own final masterpiece before dying. Well, I say dying, he pretends to so that when we go to leave he goes for his camera, but instead we shoot him again in the dome, and with that he is actually now dead and Lily is right in front of us. But unfortunately she doesn't believe that it is us, as Lily thinks that Sebastian is dead. However, before we can convince her, Ruvik makes his return. Only I lied, it's not Ruvik, it's the Milk Mother, and she turns out to be our dead wife Myra. Oh, so many plot twists. She says that we can't have Lily and summons the Watcher to remove us from the equation as she takes Lily away. We, of course, jump after them, and we wake up in our room. But the mirror has now changed into some form of cult or religious shrine. When we interact with Lily's teddy on it, we see visions of fiery boys before we appear in some bizarre church prison torture place thingy. And we must press on. When we do, we also hear random voices echo through saying that we have come for answers and this voice is here to help. Doubtful, but okay. We then slowly push through the level and nothing really exciting happens here to be honest, it's just rooms and rooms of enemies. Now don't get me wrong, they're fun to go through, but nothing really worth mentioning. We do get our next achievement here though, however, for burning 2 Lost with a hanging lamp that we shoot for death from above. The voice then talks to us again and says that I have lost everything and we are now on a path of self-destruction to punish ourselves for everything that's happened. He says we are our own downfall, then gives us our own downfall. Lily then unfortunately pipes us to slag us off a bit, which isn't on at all, so when we walk over to her to give her a bollocking, a huge wall of fire then erupts and out pops a disciple, a fire Lost that are beefy and quite scary as they pack a mean punch. However, thankfully their heads pop just as nice as anything else. We carry on and eventually meet the man behind the voice, and he does make quite the dramatic appearance. This is Father Theodore, and I have a feeling we're not gonna get on. Theodore says that violence is always our answer and we should use our mind for once. He then says that if I join him we will both get what we want. He will get his power, we will get our daughter. We just need to work together to take down Myra, and tells us to be his follower, which he doesn't take well when we say no. Instead, he washes us away. We awake to find Lily in front of us crying, but when she disappears we see, woman. Oh, okay. Who is fighting the Lost and needs our help, so we do just that. Now this is very similar to Chapter 6 in the first game where we're in a small space and we face waves of the Horde. But unlike Number 1 and Joseph, this part is miserable as hell. And the woman we're with called Torres is actually a really decent sidekick. So with a couple of minutes later we defeat the waves and are ready to move on. She also knows who we are somehow, but we also need to move on before more show up. And also unlock the next achievement, Another Ally. Now walking forward, Torres says that she is an agent of Mobius, but she was part of a betrayer plot in which Torres, Myra and Theodore were all going to break out of the court and destroy Mobius from the inside. But Torres was actually recruited by Myra. She found out that Mobius had Lily and joined up for the right moment to take Lily back. But we are interrupted as eventually we reach close to a safe house and see a rather hot gentleman. This is the Harbinger, but he walks off for now, so thankfully we can make it to a hideout and hop inside. Inside, Torres also shows off her extensive and quite impressive C4 collection, and we talk about the entire situation. We also talk to Kidman, also saying that we can now finally trust her before moving on. The next achievement is right here though, as we find the final coffee machine and take a large swig from it, unlocking Caffeine Addict. Definitely the easiest of the collectible achievements. So we head back into the Marrow and move through to get out. Going through, however, a cold-hearted spooky bish comes back and my timbers get absolutely unapologetically shivered. It's the Anima again, but this time the Anima wants to kill us, like properly kill us, so she is much more aggressive in trying to find us, but we've got something that she doesn't have, bugs. Oh, she be sprinting. Wait, what? Yep, that should have killed us. But oh well. Anyway, we carry on and make it past her until we reach, well, us again. Sebastian then comes to realise what this entire thing is. With younger Sebastian repeating "can't move, it's all my fault," we realise that the anima and that these trials are due to Sebastian's unrepressed trauma and connection to the stem, hence why the anima is so obsessed with him. But we're here to break that, so by shooting ourselves in the head, we awake and the anima is no more. We also get our spicy revolver from the first game and unlock an achievement called Finally Free. But back to the story now. We make it to a room and hear two people arguing. We open the door to see that Hoffman is talking to the Harbinger, who also then immediately goes on the offense. It turns out that the Harbinger is Liam O'Neill and has fallen to the followings of Theodore. O'Neill helped him hide and now he's corrupted and he must kill us. So right now we must fight back. Now there is also another achievement here for shooting his flamethrower enough to break it, so we do tackle that first. Honestly, this boss fight is rather easy as O'Neill is very slow and can be stealth stabbed. But for now, even if we die, the plan is to unload everything we have into his backpack, and eventually we do break it, unlocking no more playing with fire. So we reload and stab him in the back enough to finally kill him, which doesn't take long. He collapses and actually thanks us, as now he is free from Theodore's voice. O'Neill then says that Theodore is nowhere as he has phase shifted, but by destroying the machine that O'Neill made for him, it should reveal him again so that we can take him down. And then O'Neill dies. We unlock the achievement crossing to the other side and nick his flamethrower to repair and then use for ourselves. We find the emitter, hire Torres to come and use her bomb collection to blow it sky high. When we do that as well, Theodore instantly returns and taunts us again with Lily. We struggle to talk, but Lily then grabs us and we erupt ourselves before falling to our knees. Theodore once again then offers to join teams, so we instead go to shoot him, but at the last second he disappears, and when we fire we realise that we have shot Torres, who then has to cart our ungrateful ass all the way back to the safe room, fighting off hordes of the Lost while she does it. We also then pass out and wake up in Sebastian's old house. And by looking at a couple of objects around the house, we also unlock our next achievement, Melancholy Memories. Myra then appears and we break down, saying that we have failed everyone and that we couldn't rescue Lily from the fire. But it turns out that there wasn't any fire and this is all just trauma and pain. Myra says that we have to stop blaming ourselves for this, and this is all on Mobius. She says that now we can save Lily, and it works when we realise that it isn't our fault, it's nothing to do with us, it's all on Mobius. But now it's time to finish it. When we wake back up in the real world, we also unlock the next achievement, Spiritual Awakening. morning. We awake to find that Torres has died, dibs on a gun. And you'll never guess what, we immediately blame ourselves. Even though the gunshot didn't kill her, the loss did. So now we scream that it's all our fault, and Hoffman then says it's not our fault, and we once again get over our guilt. Not gonna lie, this part of the story makes no feckin' sense. It makes as much sense as writing on a piece of paper that I am a fish 400 times doing a silly little dance and fainting. Exactly. I think live me sums this part up the best. Huh? Bro, we've just been through this! Yeah, but I'm so guilty. How can I get to him? This is all my fault. Wait, no, it's not. Forgive yourself. We can do this. But guilt. I'm good. But anyway, we re-get over our guilt again and move on. Of course, stealing Torres' gun as well. And when we step back into the open world chapter, this time once again it's in the same place as chapter 7. But instead of guardians attacking us now, we have more harbingers. Our next point of call is seeing Sykes again and completing another side mission. And we also kill 2 harbingers on the map, steal their fuel tanks, and fix the flamethrower up like we did with the sniper back to a usable condition. When we see Sykes again, he says that he has found the back door that he was looking for, but we need to help him get out of STEM right now. We need to get the power back on and to clear the area of monsters so that then he will show us how to use it. We have no choice, of course, and we agree. We enter the Marrow again, kill everything in our way, and turn the power back on so that Sykes can get through. He joins us, boots up the computer, and sets everything up. He explains how we leave and then does it himself. He hops in the milk tub and with a puff of smoke he completely vanishes. He is out of STEM and we unlock the achievement Sykes Out, as well as his handy shotgun, a rather fancy double barrel, which we hardly use. And with that we have also found the last slide. It's time to head back to the projector and play all of them for our next achievement. So we sit down and talk about everything on the slides with Kidman, and honestly there is so much info here that I can't get into it unfortunately, but nothing that you really need to know for the story of this game. It's just extra lore and things that happened in between. So when we click on the last slide, we also unlock the achievement Chatting with Kidman. We stand up and get our hands on 1,000,000 green gels and also unlock one of the agony bolt upgrades to maximum to unlock another achievement, a little extra kick to it, and we get back to it. For now, we meet Hoffman again and she has made a device that will allow us to safely get through a huge wall of fire surrounding Union so that we can make it to Theodore's castle. We set it up and it does indeed work. Now, a couple of disciples approach of course, but we take their heads off until we eventually make it through. But with a horde quickly approaching, we need to run now, and unfortunately Hoffman gets rugby tackled, and when the horde jump on top of her and the machine she was carrying breaks, she dies an awful fiery death. But as a silver lining, we do unlock Firewalk with me. It's time to take on Theodore and end this. Also on the way to him we find the last and final document for the achievement Diligent Reader. We're thankfully starting to get all the collectibles for now, which is great as we also find the last key but won't get that achievement tied to it until we've opened up all the lockers in the new game plus. For now, we hop into a lift and get ready to face Theodore. Now, this opens up to the best part of the game for me, as he uses our fears to fight us. He spawns Lily, who once again is a nasty pasty to me, however we walk forward and embrace her. We share a lovely moment, but now Theodore knows that we have gotten over that trauma. He tests this immediately by sending us straight back to Beacon, and when we're there, we hear the sound of a chainsaw revving old friend that reunites with us. Now, honestly, this cutscene is amazing and just feels so good. We take the sadist out and then use his own chainsaw to mulch him into pixels. But we can't celebrate for long as we are taken by some barbed wire, and another friend also makes another appearance. The Keeper is back, and honestly this whole section just got me so hyped and giddy. But the Keeper stands up, beats the smeg out of himself, and the fight begins. Now, we're used to Keepers though, so who cares? We fight him and eventually put him down too. However, we're not done, as when his safe head falls to the floor, the lid opens and my favourite evil within character comes back as well. My god, it is so good to see Laura again. I think her design is absolutely amazing and I'm so thankful that I get to kill her again, as this time I have a flamethrower and we use absolutely everything we have to cook her to a fine crisp, and she eventually falls over dead and we unlock the achievement I'll Take You Down myself for using the flamethrower to kill her. And with that, we're over our trauma. We appear in front of Theodore again, who runs off, but before we can finish the deal, something stabs him from behind. Of course, it's Myra. She says that she will protect Lily, but Theodore comes back and stabs her in the neck. However, it does nothing, and Myra officially turns him to stone with a head stab, and now he is truly dead. But Sebastian doesn't realize that when she says that she's protecting Lily, she also means from Sebastian, and goes to take her leave. We awaken the church, now ruined, and go to follow her. When we open the main door, we also get our next achievement, Overcome the Past, and we find that Union has been completely destroyed. We eventually find Myra again in a building, and Sebastian breaks her for a moment, and the real Myra emerges from the Matriarch, which is what her alter ego is called. She says that she has to protect Lily and that Sebastian needs to leave before the Matriarch appears again. The next section is also like those that came before it. You fight through these tricky stone versions of the Lost until we get to Myra again. When we get too close though, she spawns the Effigy, a creature made out of, well, yeah, the white slime, and we need to put this thing down. Thankfully, this boss fight has a lot of fire around it, and hitting it in the red bits really injures it. We do die to it once, but thankfully on our second time, we do indeed put it down and carry on to see Myra again. She screams that nobody but her can protect Lily, and since we won't leave, she goes absolutely Scarlet Witch, forms of mental, and reduces everything to atoms and sand. But now we need to deal with Myra. Also unlocking everything comes crumbling down. However, before we go up for the final confrontation, we do get another achievement for finding the final residual manifest, unlocking echoes within STEM. Now we make it to the house, and Myra says to leave. We of course don't, and she moves to attack us, and we unfortunately have no choice but to shoot her in the head. When we do though, she gets weird, as all of these red eyes emerge and she goes Super Saiyan levels of crazy and turns into the true Matriarch, a hulking mess. And let's just say that I want a divorce now. Now honestly, this final fight and boss is absolutely fantastic. There are so many stages, but it never gets old, and every moment has you gripped on what's going to happen. From shooting a stomach to fighting spiders, and then, well, fighting whatever the hell this thing is. Every moment is great in the final fight, and it was such a fun boss. Now honestly, I could talk about this fight for ages, but I can't, so eventually we throw more lead into her face, and the Matriarch dies and disgustingly melts. From the puddle, we find Myra, the proper Myra. She then thanks us as well, as she couldn't control herself and we did the right thing. She then tells us to get Lily and to get out of here, and to hurry, and Myra will meet us at the house. When we take control of Sebastian again, we unlock the next achievement, Unfortunate Consequence, and move on. We make it to the house and walk through the door to Kidman. It's time for Kidman to sort this out as well, as it turns out they plan to kill Sebastian once he exits STEM. Kidman then indeed betrays Mobius. We grab a gun and go to kill Mr. Ham. So when we shoot his Matrix bodyguards and get into a good old fashioned shootout. Whilst we do this as well, we cut back to Sebastian and the next achievement, as when we find the Keeper's bobblehead on the shelf, we unlock All in the Family and go to rescue Lily. We finally find her and properly find her. We then also find Myra, who says that she can't leave STEM. She has to stay inside, and when she turns into the core of STEM, she can send a signal to chips implanted in their heads and kill every single member of Mobius, ending this once and for all. Kidman continues to kill her way to Sebastian's milk tub and eventually makes it there. Mr. Ham shouts at us from the window thinking he's Johnny Big Bollocks, and he begs her to think about what she is doing, and STEM is needed. But for this to work, Sebastian and Lily need to leave now, as Kidman is ready with the extraction and ready to give Myra the signal to blow everything, so we sprint to the light. The administrator then goes to kill Kidman by blowing up her chip, as he is running out of options. But Kidman isn't stupid, she removed the chip days ago, and with the door moments away from opening, we need to be faster. We make it to the mirror, say goodbye to Myra one last time and hop through. The door opens and Myra gives the all clear, and with that every Mobius agent's head gets liquefied from the inside, including Mr. Ham himself, which is weird. Why would he have a chip in as well? But with everybody finally dead, Sebastian wakes up, throws himself out of the tub and goes to open up the tank to Lily. We pull her out, and with that, the nightmare is finally over. Sebastian and Lily say goodbye to Kidman, who then gives her a teddy of her dear mother, before we then hop in a car and drive away. But back in STEM, the computer turns itself back on, and that's The Evil Within 2. We unlock 3 achievements for completing the campaign: Rookie, Survivor, and Against All Odds. And now we only have a little bit of light cleaning before we tackle Classic mode in the future. So we still have 6 achievements to go for this playthrough, and thankfully they are all pretty easy to obtain now and just requires going through some of the story again on New Game Plus. So we booted up a new game. So we had absolutely nothing to do until Chapter 3. Finishing the game on Nightmare, we also unlocked both the Magnum Pistol and the Brass Knuckles. Now there is an achievement for crafting ammo for every single weapon once, and the only one that we had left to do was for the Magnum. So we approached the workbench, craft some beautiful Magnum ammo, and unlock the achievement Handyman. We then sat in Tatiana's chair and unlocked the last of the lockers that we needed to unlock Locksmith. I just said lock far too much there. Now, for completing the campaign, we also unlocked the letterbox cinematic overlay for it. It's nothing special, but putting it up also grants a delicious achievement, so when we added the overlay, it unlocked that cinematic feeling. Probably one of the easiest achievements ever. After that, we then went through Chapter 3 collecting green goo at an unbelievable rate since it's New Game Plus, and by finally fully upgrading Sebastian, we unlocked the achievement Stick It In Me Veins, and this amazing little Easter egg which I just loved. Ooh.
Congratulations. You're as good as you're going to get.
Now, even though I've completed the game, I messed up in my last playthrough and forgot to pick up a pistol in Chapter 3, and it is the last gun that we need to unlock every single one. It was a tense couple of moments, but we eventually find it and picked up the laser pistol, unlocking Powerhouse. And now the last one that we need to complete this run is to fully upgrade every weapon. Now, we already had more than enough scraps, but we need to find more high-grade weapon parts to be able to unlock the full branch. So we did have to go through a couple of chapters to get the parts that we needed. It did take a little while, but we more or less speed ran through the chapters, and at the start of Chapter 7 we went to the workbench, purchased the last couple of upgrades, and unlocked They Never Even Stood a Chance. Now with that we have 50 out of 51 achievements, and the only one left is going to be the hardest and most frustrating that we face. Now, starting classic mode, I had some rough estimates on where I wanted to use my 7 saves. I think the most important saves that I could do were right before the big boss fights, so I knew I needed one for Stefano, one fairly close to Theodore, and definitely one for the final fight with Marrow as well. So with rough guesses and a lot of prayers, I booted up classic mode and got straight to it. Our journey starts, of course, in Chapter 1 with the house fire. Honestly, it's pretty much impossible to die here. It's all just set up for Lily saying that you're a bastard, the scenes with Kidman saying that she isn't really dead, and then you're a hop, skip and jump straight back into STEM. There is literally nothing here worthy of comment. That's it, 1 chapter down, 16 more to go. Now again for Chapter 2, there isn't anything really here worthy of note. It sets up the situation you're in that things have gone very bad. You're also introduced to Stefano and his magic camera, as well as you meeting the Guardian for the first time. We more or less speed ran this chapter as well, as there's nothing here worth picking up, as you don't get your first gun or key until after this chapter is done. So we outrun the Guardian once, we meet her again, Stefano then throws his knife at me, we use it to kill the demon, and then we throw ourselves through this white door and into the cabin that would eventually lead us to Union. At this point, even though I knew that the start of the run would be easy, I also had a slight bit of confidence to my step, as we're still getting through faster than I was expecting. We meet the knockoff Resident Evil 7 food scene woman and put a wonderful bullet into her brain before moving on to the first part that actually made me a little nervous. Now, previously when I first played this game on Nightmare, this scene where you meet your first horde of the Lost took me quite a while to do because I wasn't really used to the controls and just kept dying. And I knew that if I didn't get it done this time and first time, I'd have to start the game again. Not the worst thing that could have happened, however I didn't want to redo all the unskippable cutscenes that I'd just gone through. So knowing not to fight is definitely the right decision, I immediately sneak around them, until a Lost sees me and tracks me down. Now here, I panicked, I threw a bottle at her and I was able to manage to sneak kill her, and thankfully this didn't alert any of the other Lost around us, so I was free to carry on. We stabbed the Lost patrolling the safe room and the one banging on the door, and we let ourselves in. Honestly, I was very relieved that we did this first try, as now I know that we're about to talk to O'Neill and start Chapter 3, which is where exactly I wanted to use my first save. So pre-Harbinger O'Neill gives me the signal and we use our very first save, before heading back into the safe room to meet Tatiana again. Now when we sit down though, she actually has something to say that I wasn't expecting at all. What are you gonna say? I can't use your...
There's very little I can do for you here.
Oh!
This is a challenge you have to face as you are.
I knew what I got myself.
That's so cool!
I'm not worried.
The lockers here are still free to use though. I get the feeling you'll need their contents now more than ever.
Honestly, I love this little attention to detail. They didn't need to do this for the game, but they did, and I appreciate it. It's the small things that add up to make a great game in my opinion, and this is exactly what I mean by that. But pieing Tatiana off, we head out to the first open world section of the game. Again, I wasn't too worried, as I knew the routes I had to take and pretty much every enemy that I was going to face along the way. So the first port of call was to grab the Agony crossbow again. Now here, pretty simple, I get it, the Lost Horde find me, but I electrocute the water and stand on their delicious squishy heads. I also collected a couple of the easy locker keys that I knew along the way to the petrol station on the top of the hill to meet Lily. Now for this run as well, I'm not going to be messing around with any of the side missions or objectives. We're essentially speed running this as there isn't actually anything here that we need. So we cautiously pressed on. We found the Lily shadow, saw what happened, and knew that the spawn would be very close behind. Again, this didn't bother me too much though, as even though these creatures would kill me very quickly, again from the first playthrough I learned that if you take a far right path and go out of your way to go as right as you can actually sneak past them and avoid them completely. A couple more visions of Lily later, we get to the point of entering the warehouse. Right now things are going well in my opinion, and I'm quite happy on the progress that we've made. We make it indoors, we find the shotgun and find Lily's doll and go to leave. Now this part as well I was a touch worried about because you have to fight 3 spawn face on, and I knew that if I didn't play this right then they would tear me to shreds within seconds and I'd have to redo chapter 3 all over again. Sure, not the end of the world, but that's the thing with this challenge. The further ahead you make it after a save point, the more nervous it makes you that you're going to lose all of the progress that you've just made. And because of that, the further you go, you get a little bit more nervous and end up making some mistakes, which, well, we'll get to. But thankfully the spawn also didn't give me much hassle, besides this one bastard scaring the smeg out of me, that is. But with a couple of well placed shock arrows and the use of a barrel's fire, we put them all down first try and went back to go see O'Neill. Now at this point as well, some enemies spawn all over the place, but it's nothing, as it's only about a 1-minute sprint back to the safe room, and we make it there flawlessly. Now starting chapter 4, we quickly make it to the other side of the map and hop into the Marrow. However, there we take a quick pit stop back to the safe room again. Now I don't actually think I showed this in the first part, but at the start of chapter 4 you can actually unlock a shooting range where you can test your skills and win some stuff, mainly gun parts and gel and keys and such. But since this is classic mode, we have no need for gel and weapon parts, so instead it just gives you an absolute ton of herbs and gunpowder, which is fantastic. So we quickly went through all of the levels to stockpile as much as we could, because we're rapidly approaching a room that I hated and was very much dreading. Now in the Marrow in chapter 4 you eventually make it to this door where you have to wait for it to open, and whilst that's happening a bunch of different Lost come to attack you. Now one of the Lost in here is something called a bitch. Not legally called that, but that's what I'm going to be calling her. This fish looking feck has unbelievable speed, a lot of health, and the knife attack that she can do will absolutely drain your health. So I was very worried about this fight, because if I die, straight back to the start of chapter 3 that I go. So we started the fight and I was struggling with 2 Lost when I hear this absolute weapon come out and decide to give me the fear. Now she did this by teaming up with fellow Lost. Knife strikes into grabs and more Lost showing up. I was certain that I'd be restarting, but I kept my cool and burnt through more or less every single herb that I had just unlocked through the shooting range, and with one final trusted shotgun shot, we put that bitch down for good. Now even though I was very on edge still, the fact that I had dealt with this room and won on my first try made me certain that I can complete the rest without an issue. Oh god, how wrong I was. But we made it through the rest of the Marrow very well. We stormed through the first person section and through the rest of the facility and onto the next part. Now, I knew what was coming next, and again, it did make me slightly nervous, but I had a plan. When we left the room, I knew a Guardian fight was next. However, like the first time that I played, my plan was to not fight her at all. Because at the end of the day, just because it's an armoured plated alien killing machine that salivates unspeakable slobber, it doesn't mean that it's a bad person. So we're going to run. The Guardian is assembled right in front of us and we sprint round to the back of the house as fast as that we can, and start the process of getting the door open. Oh, come on, 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 come on. In, get in. Bye. With slamming the door in her stupid face, we were ready to continue. However, I knew what was next. Another boss fight, of course. And again, not to hone on, but I haven't saved since the start of chapter 3, so I knew that I needed to win this fight against Stefano's Obscura. Luckily, we don't actually need to kill this creature, we just need to injure it and stall it enough for the countdown timer to reach 0. And even though it is still technically a boss fight, I wasn't too worried because as long as you've got stamina, you can actually outrun any of the attacks that it makes. And only moments later, the countdown was finished and we were good to continue. We leave the building having turned the machine on and head straight back to the office. Once there, we calm down, gather ourselves and use our second save. Not dying once so far also felt great and I was so happy with the progress that I was making, but I knew the fight that I was not far off reaching. So cautiously, I carried on and then headed straight into the next open world section, chapter 7. Now even though again this is more of an open world section of the game, all we have to do here is destroy 2 paintings that could clear the entrance to the theatre so that we can have the fight with Stefano. Stefano, and I already knew where both the paintings were. So we reached the first painting within minutes and Sebastian gave his best impression of me looking at an uncut steak. God, Sebastian just doesn't get it, does he?
I'm gonna stab the shit out of you.
Such a stupid joke, I'm sorry. But once inside this painting, we have the easiest sequence ever. Now, this is meant to be a scary, intense moment as the Obscura returns, but the speed in which you open the door makes this part really easy and honestly a little bit anticlimactic. But one masterpiece slashed, one more to go. Now, on the path to the next painting, we hit a snag. We bump into the Guardian again and a couple of Lost that really do some damage along the way, so we speedily throw ourselves into the next painting. Now, I also was aware that this painting would be harder than the last as it's a small horde of Lost you face, with of course one of the fish bitches lurking around as well. So we used our best friend to help in this section, Stealth. We expertly stabbed and slid past undetecting Lost. However, when that went to hell, we used our other best friend instead, and Bomb. Thankfully, that gave me enough time to quickly get the door open, slash the art, and clear the path. Once we left, we simply sprinted to the theatre and finally was there, ready for the Stefano boss. Now this is where I was extremely nervous. Stefano is what we call in medical terms a prick, so I knew I needed to save here as well, as if I was going to die in any section of the game, it was going to be here. So 3 saves down, only 4 left. Now honestly, the fight with Stefano, his first phase isn't actually that bad at all. Besides a lucky hit or two, we can take care of him pretty well consistently. However, his second phase with the Aperture is where Stefano gets his medical name. And honestly, there's only 2 reasons why this part of the boss fight sucks. Number 1, the Aperture's tentacles that I could just not avoid no matter how hard I tried. I would always accidentally run straight into its path and it would always deal huge damage. But the other part that boiled my blood was a specific Stefano move in which he full on sprints at you, grabs you and wipes away your health pretty much instantly. And he can also do this no matter your state, so if you're in the middle of reeling from a bomb hit, he will just simply grab you out of it and take away whatever health and dignity that you had left. And here is where we had our first death. Thankfully, the panic saved was completely justified, and oh my god was it justified, as the next chapter or 2 was where the pain really started for me with this run. As unfortunately the deaths did not stop there. Again and again Stefano just keep getting the better of me, and death after death I was slowly losing the will to live, until about maybe 30 or 40 minutes later, 7 deaths and a couple of extremely lucky shots, Stefano was down for the count. However, it's not all good news, as I then had to complete the next chapter before I could fully feel comfortable enough to use another save. Now, the start of chapter 9 immediately introduces you to Theodore. Now, I honestly don't really remember this character that much other than the evil within one scene at the end, but you can see the exact moment where I remembered what was coming next. Oh, I've just remembered it's the fire bastards. So fire bastards aside, I carried on and slowly made it comfortably throughout the level, until we got to this room with a lever. In this section you need to take the lever and use it to unlock the next door. That normally would be fine, but once you remove it, for some reason it unlocks all of the doors in the room. And the area is soon swarmed by a group of Lost and a fish bitch. And the bitch is exactly what I was worried about, as I didn't have too much ammo after the Stefano fight and knew that she took some shooting to put down. But thankfully and somehow miraculously, we took her out fairly quickly, even though we are now shockingly low on ammo. Now we get to the true pain that I was fearing. A short while later we find ourselves in front of 3 discipled, fire covered Lost that can destroy your health bar. Now normally you can just wait for them to not be on fire and sneak kill them, but here 3 spawn and immediately spot you, so you have to fight them. And well, this happened. Reload you. And with that, right back to the theatre and having to face Stefano again. But thankfully, we took care of him and made it past the horrible room again and was right back at the fire bastards. And then this happened. Awful. But I have 4 bombs. And now, honestly, this part destroyed me, as the worst part was just the time that I had lost because of the Stefano fight. Then making it to the disciples again easily took 30 or 40 minutes, so this section took me hours and a shirt change to get through. But eventually, with a little perseverance and luck, we killed them and moved on. At the end of this chapter as well, we are also thrown into the next, where we are in the cabin with Torres. Now, I said it in the last video, but my god, I love Torres. She's actually a great sidekick and deals well with the lost. Once again, screw you, Joseph. So this section was a little bit scary, but we made it fairly well thanks to Torres and her very well programmed AI. The next part, again, I wasn't too worried about. I knew there was my next save point only meters away, so my plan was to use Torres to light up the disciples in the path so that I could then save ammo and be a lot safer, as the disciples are exactly gods at catching their prey. Then I actually realised that I had plenty of ammo and Torres wasn't being as quick as I'd have liked, so I decided to take the last one down manually. That hit! Yep, and with that, right back to the Stefano fight. My god, I was in a foul mood after this, as for the first time that I'd faced him to now, I'd lost maybe about 4 or 5 hours of playtime. So I wanted this part done, and done now. Fortunately, I pulled out my inner John Wick and ripped every enemy apart that stood in my way to the next save point. We killed Stefano, the prison room, the disciples, the cabin, and we cautiously made it past the next lot of fire effects. We reached the safe house, opened the door, hopped in, and thankfully many hours and a rage quit later, we were at the next save point. The start of chapter 11 was here, and we never had to do the Stefano fight ever again. I was so happy, to say the least. I mean, here's my reaction. Yep, that happy, that noise. And thankfully chapter 11 was a breeze compared to the last, and we effortlessly made our way through the Marrow and lost, until we reached our next boss fight. This is O'Neill, or the Harbinger, and he is armed with a very angry flamethrower. Fortunately though, this boss fight isn't anywhere near as difficult as it seems, as not only is he horrendously slow, but he can actually be sneak attacked for some massive damage. So with this boss fight, I was bizarrely confident and was ready to move on quick, and thankfully that's exactly what happened. With a final stab in the back, he was down and we were ready to blow up his machine and go fight Theodore. Now here, we accidentally shoot Torres, rest in peace Torres, and we're thrown back into the safe room ready to meet up with Hoffman at the hotel to make it through the firewalk section. Now I wasn't bothered about getting to the hotel as it's only a minute or two away and you can sprint straight there, but the firewalk did give me the fear, so I decided to use another save here as well, so now we only have 2 saves left for the rest of the game, as by my calculations I did have a spare, as the only point I know that I needed to save for sure was the save before Myra. Now the firewalk was intimidating as you're in a pretty confined space with disciples running at you from every angle, but thanks to my bizarrely quick reflexes and a slight scare, we both made it there in one piece. Well, not both, Hoffman burns to death, but let's not focus on the negatives. Now it was only a short jump to Theodore, however we unfortunately underestimated another fire bastard who quickly teaches me to respect him. But since we had just saved, we only had to do the firewalk again, which for the second time went just as smoothly, and by giving the fire bastards a lot more respect and with a lot more running, we made it past that entire section too relatively easily. And before the fight with Theodore, I thought it was best just to be safe and use another save. But with that, all of a sudden we're in front of Theodore, and just as fast we're back in Evil Within 1. God, I adore this section. So the Sadist gets taken out automatically, and I wasn't worried by the Keeper or by Laura, as I knew that the pistol ammo respawns against the Keeper, so I could just give him everything that I had, whilst the Laura fight we just have the gigantic fire trap that could more or less insta-kill her. So just like that, the Sadist dies, the Keeper dies, Laura dies, and Theodore dies. Now we're on the final home stretch, just one more section to go until we reach chapter 16 and go towards the final fight. Now the next section, honestly, I wasn't too fearful. I know the rock loss that Myra spawns can take quite a hit, but I also knew that patience and stealth would win me there, and I also knew how to fight the effigy, so again I wasn't too worried about that either. And I was thankfully correct about the rock lost. If sneaking past them didn't work, I also found out that by shooting them in the chest with a shotgun, they understandably fall over, and with that you can just stamp on them and they're dead, which is surprisingly the most efficient way of killing them besides the stealth attacks. But unfortunately we messed up with the effigy. Now the fight itself went wonderful and I was doing some respectable damage, however I had a problem. I had fully run out of ammo. Nothing in the inventory and nothing on the map, which meant that I could no longer kill him no matter how much that I tried. So we made the tough decision that I needed to get killed by it and to try again. It hurt to do so, but I was at peace with this decision, so that's what I did. I died. But now to recap, because I'm sure you don't want to hear me go through all of that again. We killed the sadist, we killed the keeper, we then killed Laura, we killed Theodore. Well, Myra killed him technically, but shut up. We also killed the Rocklost. Within 30 minutes we were back at the effigy and I was much more equipped for the fight. Now this is where I used the sniper, and it turns out the sniper is quite a beast against it, as it just simply removes his health from the equation, and with plenty of ammo left to spare and one final shot, the effigy went down. And that's this chapter over too. We meet Myra and she sends us to the Dust Kingdom. There was only one thing in between me and that beautiful achievement now, the final Myra boss fight. So we used our final save just before it and went to go and kill this maniac. Now I knew I was in for a bit of pain with the Myra boss. Not only does she have like 5 different stages, I was also quite low on ammo. However, I also knew that if you could get past the first stage where you have to shoot her stomach, then some lovely arachnids would show up and replenish your heals, ammo, and give you some gunpowder as well when you kill them, as these guys show up every time you run out of ammo. Now, truth be told, I died here. A lot. For some bizarre reason, when we shot off her arm in the second stage, when she grabbed us with it, we didn't get the crosshairs that I was expecting, so we missed it and died from her crushing us. This really annoyed me, as a bug this late in the game would mean that this entire section may be unbelievably difficult to get past, and I was really confused on what to do. After a couple of attempts though, somebody from my chat asked me if I was actually aiming though, or if I was just blindly shooting. And of course I was. What kind of moron wouldn't? Oh, for fuck's sake, you were right. I'm so stupid. Yeah, not my proudest moment, I can't lie. But honestly, I was just tight. Actually, no, I can't use any excuse. I was just being a moron. Anyway. With the ADS problem now a thing of the past, we soon made it through to the final phase, where we have to aim for the gob. And with one last bullet to the teeth, Myra was dead. We start the final chapter and we're pretty much golden here, as the only thing that we have to do is run for a little bit and shoot with a little bit with Kidman. And it all went swimmingly. We shot as Kidman and we ran with Sebastian. Only a couple of minutes later we dove through the mirror back into the real world, and with that, classic mode was done. We skipped the cutscenes and thankfully unlocked You Asked For It again. And with that, The Evil Within 2 is now finished, and also the entire Evil Within series. The grind is over. Now, honestly, a lot of people compare this to Akumu mode because, of course, myself included, it is a difficulty-related challenge that is meant to stress you out and push you to your limits. However, I must say that Classic mode is infinitely easier than Akumu. Akumu mode was a rage-inducing, hair-pulling, wall-punching experience, where Classic mode didn't really bring out that same rage for me. It was still tough, don't get me wrong, and I'm also sure that the previous couple of playthroughs really set me up nicely for it, but there is no doubt in my mind that Akumu takes the crown on the hardest challenge for The Evil Within. And now for my thoughts on The Evil Within 2, and how does it compare to the first? Well, let me be honest, The Evil Within 2 is an absolute masterpiece in my eyes, and tons better than the first for me. Evil Within 2 is everything that a sequel needs to be and more, and I'm not just talking about the upgraded graphics. Don't get me wrong, this game is absolutely stunning, but every component of this game is just superior in my opinion. The combat is better, albeit with some very annoying moments where enemies don't stagger right, but the writing is better, the cinematography is breathtaking, the pace is wonderful, and Sebastian actually has some character development in this. We can see his trauma and his pain as he fights through this world again, and he isn't a stiff, confused protagonist like he was in the first game. In this game, Sebastian actually has character, and it made me connect with him so much more than I did within the first game. The enemies in this game are also phenomenally designed. Now, it's not void of criticism, as I did feel like 3 big bads was a little bit much with Stefano, Theodore, and Myra. I honestly think it could have been better if the removed Stefano and just focused on Myra and Theodore with his trauma, and then developed them more. And I also have to say that The Evil Within 2 is noticeably more buggy on PC at least than the first. Now don't get me wrong, nothing game-breakingly bad, but definitely some weird animation bugs and iframe issues from time to time, but nothing that I couldn't happily deal with. So yeah, in conclusion, I absolutely loved this game. I personally think it's a masterpiece and one of the best action-based survival horrors that you can play. I would honestly put this easily in my top 5 alongside Resident Evil 2 Remake and the first Outlast game. It is that good for me. Now, understandably, I may get some stick for saying that, but hey, I'm being honest. So, with that, let's move on to the stats. For the Evil Within 2, it took me nearly 51 hours to grind all 51 achievements. An achievement every hour. Nice. For this game, I'm easily going to be giving it a 9 out of 10. It was a phenomenal game, and with a couple of tweaks could have easily been a 10, but still, 9 out of 10 means that I adore it and would implore you to give it a go yourselves, even if you didn't like the first. For difficulty of the achievements though, I will only be giving this a 7 out of 10. To unlock all of the achievements, be prepared to spend a lot of time on collectibles, going through the story nearly twice to upgrade everything, and then of course classic mode. It is definitely tricky and you're going to have to fight for the 100%, but it isn't anywhere near as hard as the first, so I have to give it a 7. Definitely a challenge, but there are harder ones out there. For the hardest achievement as well, it comes as a shock to nobody when I give it to You Asked For It again, because of course I have to. But that's the Evil Within 2. My lord, I really hope they make a third game. And there we go, that is every single achievement in both Evil Within 2 and the DLC. I love this series so much. Evil Within 2 is probably within my top 3 favourite horror games of all time. I thought Evil Within 2 was a masterpiece. And yeah, I'm heartbroken that we might not even get a third now anymore. And if you did indeed watch this from the start to the end, my thank you so much. That is insane and I really do appreciate your support. And if you click to the end, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much. But there we go. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done already for more achievement grinds in the future. I am bringing some really good games and some really difficult challenges soon, so it would be lovely to have you watch that. And of course, to catch the achievement grind live, don't forget to come by my Twitch as well, where we play the most brutal challenges and chat, laugh at my misery. It's great. Come along. But there we go. Thank you all so much for watching this Supercut. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will hopefully speak to you all soon. So until then, take care. Bye-bye for now.